Part 1. It was a rainy Thursday morning when Adam Reeves received the phone call that changed everything. The kind of call you don't ever forget, not because of what was said, but because of the silence that followed. "Mr. Reeves," the voice said gently. "This is Mercy Hill's care facility. I'm sorry to inform you that your mother, Margaret Reeves, passed away last night in her sleep." For a moment, Adam didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. He stared out of the conference room window in his Manhattan law office, watching the raindrops race each other down the glass. He felt nothing, just a numb void settling deep inside his chest. Not sadness, not grief, just a quiet, hollow emptiness. Because Adam hadn't seen his mother in over 9 years. The last time he visited her, he was 29, hot-headed, bitter, and convinced he was doing the right thing by walking away. He told her to stop calling. He told her to stay out of his life. He told her she was the reason his father left. But now she was gone. And all those words, they echoed louder than ever. Adam sat at the edge of his couch that evening, still in his office clothes, tie loose, hands trembling over a glass of untouched whiskey. He kept replaying the same question in his head. Why now? Why did her death feel like the end of something he'd been pretending didn't exist? His phone buzzed beside him, a message from an unknown number. "Mr. Reeves, I was your mother's nurse. She left something for you. Like to meet. Clara." He stared at the screen for a long while before finally replying. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. My office." The next morning she arrived. Clara was in her early 50s, soft-spoken but direct. She held a small wooden box in both hands, polished but worn. There was a note taped to the top. "For Adam. Only after I'm gone." "She made me promise I'd deliver this to you personally," Clara said, setting it gently on his desk. She talked about you almost every day." Adam looked up sharply, not sure whether to believe it, or if he even wanted to. Clara didn't flinch. "She never hated you. Not even once. She just missed you. That's all." And then she left. He sat there staring at the box. "Do I even deserve to open it?" His fingers trembled slightly as he undid the latch and lifted the lid. Inside, a stack of old letters tied with a blue ribbon. The one on top was addressed to him. His full name, written in his mother's delicate, familiar script. He unfolded it slowly. "Dear Adam, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. And you're probably wondering why I wrote letters instead of calling one more time. Simple. I didn't want to push you away again. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. The biggest one, not protecting you from your father's cruelty soon enough. But the second biggest, letting you leave without telling you the truth. You've hated me for years because you thought I was the reason he left. But it was never like that. Adam, your father didn't leave because of me. He left because of you." Adam's heart froze. He stared at the words, trying to process what they meant. He left because of me? He stood, knocking his chair back, pacing the room. Why would she say that? Why now? He picked up the second letter. Dated 7 years ago. "My sweet boy. You were only 6 when he started yelling at you for the smallest things. You spilled milk once and he didn't speak to you for 3 days. Do you remember that? Probably not. But I do. I remember every time I tried to defend you, and every time he said, 'You're making him weak.' He didn't want a son. He wanted a soldier. And when you started asking questions about why he was never around, about why he drank so much, he couldn't take it. So he left. He packed up and disappeared. Because you were becoming too strong to control. I didn't tell you then because you loved him. And I couldn't bear to see your heart break. But I see now, by hiding the truth I broke it anyway." Adam's throat tightened. He dropped the letter onto the desk and collapsed into his chair, face buried in his hands. He could still remember the night his dad left. He was 11. His father stood at the door with a suitcase in one hand and a cold stare in the other. Adam had said something stupid probably. Maybe asked why his dad never showed up to his school play. And without a word, the man walked out. That was it. No goodbye. No explanation. Just the slam of a door. And silence. Adam had blamed his mom for years after that. She was the one who stayed. She was the one who kept quiet. She was the one who never told him why. But now, piece by piece, the truth was revealing itself. The next few letters painted a picture he wasn't ready for. How she worked 2 jobs to keep the house. How she skipped meals so he could eat. How she walked to work every winter when the car broke down, so he wouldn't see how much she was sacrificing. And how every Christmas, even when he didn't visit, she still decorated the tree with his old ornaments. The final letter had no date. Just a single sentence on a folded piece of paper. I never stopped waiting for you to come back. Adam sat in that office for hours. The rain outside had stopped, but inside, it had just begun. He called Clara. Where is she buried? Clara's voice cracked on the other end. Maple Hollow Cemetery. Islot. Next to the old chapel. Without thinking, he grabbed his coat and ran. The cemetery was quiet. Fog hugged the grass like a blanket of sorrow. The air was thick with silence. He found her plot easily. A modest headstone. Simple engraving. Margaret Elaine Reeves. 1952 to 2025. A heart that never stopped loving. Adam stood there, tears streaming silently down his face. For the first time in years, he let himself feel regret, guilt, love. He knelt down, touched the cold stone, and whispered the only words he could muster. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have come back. Behind him, the wind carried the sound of soft wind chimes from the chapel roof, a breeze that felt like a whisper, or maybe a mother's forgiveness. But Adam didn't know. This was only the beginning, because hidden beneath her grave was a secret that would shatter everything. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. His mother's letters haunted him, echoing in the silence of his penthouse apartment like voices from another world. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her handwriting. I never stopped waiting for you to come back. The guilt didn't just sit in his chest, it bled into his bones. But what disturbed him even more was the last thing Clara said before they hung up. I didn't just work at Mercy Hills, she'd said. I was her friend. And Margaret told me something. Something she asked me never to share unless you came back. Adam had stiffened. What did she say? But Clara had hesitated. No, not over the phone. There's something you need to see. Something I need to see, Adam thought. What else could there be? He had read every letter, cried every tear. But something told him. He was still just scratching the surface. The next morning, Adam met Clara again, this time at a quiet cafe near the outskirts of town. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Her hands were folded tightly around a manila envelope. Before she passed, Clara began. Your mother made me promise. She said if you ever came back, not just physically but emotionally, that I had to give you this. She slid the envelope across the table. Adam opened it slowly. Inside was an old photograph. A child, maybe 6 or 7, sitting on a porch step with Margaret. His mother looked younger, healthier, smiling in a way Adam hadn't seen in decades. But it wasn't Adam in the picture. It was someone else. Someone who looked almost like him. Who is this? He asked, confusion rising in his voice. Clara took a deep breath. That is your brother. The world around him seemed to fall silent. My what? Your half-brother, Clara said gently. His name was Daniel. Adam's hands trembled. He stared at the photo again, this time noticing subtle differences. The eyes were darker, the jaw more square. But the resemblance was undeniable. How? When? Clara leaned forward, voice soft. Before your father left, Margaret had an affair. She never meant for it to happen, but she was lonely, broken. She found comfort in someone who cared for her. And Daniel was born from that, she continued. Your father found out. That was the real reason he left. Adam leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. You mean, I spent my whole life blaming her for my dad leaving, when really he just couldn't handle the truth? Clara nodded. Yes. And your mother never told you because she didn't want you to think less of her. She thought if you knew about Daniel, it would ruin everything. Adam's voice cracked. What happened to him? Clara looked down, her eyes glistening. He disappeared. When he was 13. The words hit like a knife. Disappeared? Yes. Your mom sent him to live with her cousin in upstate New York. Said it was to protect him from your father mostly. But one day he just vanished. Adam's jaw tightened. Was there a search? Police? Clara nodded slowly. Yes. But nothing ever came of it. Your mother spent years trying to find him. Hired private investigators. Checked missing persons databases. But it was like he vanished into thin air. She never stopped looking at him. Even when her health declined. She was still trying to find her lost son. Adam sat in stunned silence. Everything he thought he knew about his mother, and his own life, was unraveling like an old threadbare sweater. I need to see her house, he said suddenly. Where she lived before the care facility. Clara nodded. It's still there. Now. I have the keys. The house was a modest single-story in a quiet neighborhood. Overgrown lawn, chipping paint, the windows clouded with dust. Clara opened the front door and stepped aside. Adam walked in like he was stepping into a memory. The living room was untouched. Faded floral wallpaper. An old recliner with a knitted blanket draped over it. Family photos still hung crookedly on the wall, but none of Daniel. She took most of his pictures down after he disappeared, Clara said from behind him. Said it hurt too much. Adam wandered through the kitchen, then the hallway. Stopping at the closed door at the end. Was this his room? Clara nodded. He pushed it open slowly. Inside, the room was frozen in time. A twin bed with Star Wars sheets. A dusty bookshelf filled with Hardy Boys novels. Posters curling at the corners. And on the nightstand, a notebook. He picked it up and opened the first page. June 11th. I heard Mom crying again last night. I think it's because of Dad. Or maybe because of me. I'm not supposed to be here. I don't think Adam even knows about me. June 22nd. I wish I could meet Adam. He seems cool. Mom says he's smart and good at baseball. I hope someday I can tell him I'm his brother. I don't want to be a secret. Adam closed the notebook, his eyes burning. He had a brother who wanted nothing more than to be part of his life. And now he was gone. Why didn't she ever tell me? He asked aloud. Clara was quiet for a moment before replying. Because she was ashamed and afraid. She thought if you knew, you'd hate her even more. But she never gave up, Adam. Not on you. Not on him. As they were about to leave the room, something caught Adam's eye. A corner of the carpet near the closet was slightly raised. He knelt down and peeled it back. There, hidden beneath the floorboard, was a small metal box. Clara gasped. Adam pried it open. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to Daniel. Each one signed by Margaret. Were these ever mailed? Adam whispered. Clara shook her head. No. She wrote one every week. But had no idea where to send them. Adam picked one at random. Dear Daniel, I saw a boy today who looked like you. Same hair. Same walk. I almost cried in the grocery store. I miss you more than I ever thought possible. Your brother turned 35 today. I wish you both could have met. You would have loved him. He's stubborn, smart, and full of fire. Just like you. Wherever you are. I hope you're safe. I hope you know how deeply I love you. And I hope one day you'll come home. Love. Adam folded the letter carefully and placed it back. Then he turned to Clara. eyes filled with something new. Determination. I want to find him. Clara hesitated. Adam. It's been nearly 20 years. I don't care, he said. If there's even a chance he's still out there. I need to know. For his mother. For himself. For the brother he never got to know. As he left the house that evening, the wind picked up again, the same way it had at the cemetery. But this time it didn't feel cold. Felt like a push. Like someone whispering from the other side. Keep going. Adam couldn't stop thinking about the letters. Not the ones addressed to him, but the ones his mother wrote to Daniel, week after week, year after year, without knowing if he was even alive. Each word was a quiet scream. Each page soaked in heartbreak. He sat at his desk in the dim evening light, the stack of Daniel's letters spread across the surface like puzzle pieces waiting to be reassembled. And somewhere deep inside, Adam felt it. This story wasn't over. It never had been. He began going through the letters one by one, carefully reading the handwriting that was now so painfully familiar. There were patterns, events, locations, clues maybe. She mentioned the town of Silver Pines 3 different times in different years. Daniel, I walked past the old gas station in Silver Pines today, the one where we used to buy strawberry milk. I remembered your crooked smile when the clerk gave you the extra straw. The leaves are turning in Silver Pines, and every road reminds me of you. It snowed again last night. Just like that Christmas in Silver Pines, remember? Adam leaned back in his chair, a new energy building in his chest. Silver Pines. That town was real. It was a small place. He remembered hearing the name once on a radio broadcast years ago, maybe 2 hours north from where he was now. He pulled up a map. There it was, Silver Pines, tucked in the hills like a forgotten postcard. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Clara agreed to come with him. Your mother trusted me with this secret for a reason, she said. I want to help finish what she started. They left early the next morning. Fog draped the highway like a curtain, and the radio played low jazz as they drove through winding mountain roads. Adam hadn't said much during the drive. He was trying to remember everything about his childhood, every odd moment, every quiet look his mother gave him. Was Daniel ever nearby? Did he unknowingly cross paths with his brother? And then a thought hit him. What if he saw me? Adam whispered. What if Daniel saw me growing up, but stayed hidden on purpose? Clara didn't answer, because sometimes silence is louder than truth. Silver Pines was quiet. Not ghost town quiet, but small town quiet. One diner, one gas station, a firehouse, and a general store with creaky floorboards and a bell over the door. The kind of place where strangers stand out immediately. They checked into a small inn with floral wallpaper and rotary phones. By noon, they were walking the town square, photos in hand. Not of Daniel as a child. Those were useless now. But a computer-aged rendering Adam had created with the help of a facial reconstruction app. A possible version of what Daniel might look like at 32. They asked shopkeepers, baristas, even the local librarian. Nothing. It wasn't until they reached the mechanic shop at the edge of town that something shifted. A man in oil-stained overalls and a red cap wiped his hands on a rag and glanced at the photo, then froze. You looking for this guy? He asked. Adam and Clara exchanged a look. Yes, Adam said carefully. Do you know him? The mechanic's eyes narrowed. Depends. Why were you looking for him? Adam hesitated. He's my brother. We've been separated a long time. I think he used to go by Daniel Reeves. The mechanic studied Adam for a long moment. Then he said, Name's not Reeves anymore. Around here he's Danny Ward. Lives out by Old Timber Lane. Hasn't been around for a few days though. Adam felt like the ground had dropped beneath him. He was real. Daniel was real. Clara placed a hand on Adam's shoulder as they returned to the car. You okay? No, Adam said honestly. But I need to see him. Old Timber Lane was just outside the town limits, A winding dirt road framed by tall pines. Birds scattered as they drove slowly past. At the end of the lane was a cabin. Modest, quiet, weathered from the seasons. The yard was cluttered with tools and a single motorcycle half covered by a tarp. No car. No lights. No signs of life. Adam got out, heart pounding. He knocked once. No answer. He turned the knob. Unlock. Adam, Clara whispered. Maybe we should wait. But Adam had already stepped inside. The cabin was neat in a rugged sort of way. Stacks of books, a well-used coffee pot, framed photos of landscapes, and one photo that made Adam stop cold. Picture on the mantel. Of a boy, 8 or 9 years old, with his eyes. Adam picked it up slowly. Clara stepped beside him. That's his son. Adam nodded, his voice catching. I think so. Just then the door creaked open behind them. A voice rang out. Dark. Suspicious. Who the hell are you? Adam turned. Standing in the doorway, sweaty and covered in dirt and sawdust from the nearby trail, was a man in his early 30s. Muscular. Dark eyes. His face changed the moment he saw Adam. Not with recognition, but with confusion, and something like fear. Adam stepped forward slowly. Daniel. The man stiffened. What do you want? He asked. I'm your brother. The room fell into silence so thick it felt like a wall. Daniel's jaw clenched. I don't have a brother. Adam didn't flinch. Yes, you do. He pulled out one of the letters, the one Margaret had written about the grocery store memory, and handed it to him. Daniel stared at it, then at Adam. His hand shook slightly, but he didn't speak. He just walked over to the kitchen counter, grabbed a glass and poured himself water. You should go, he said finally. Why? Adam asked, stepping closer. Because you don't want to remember. Because it hurts too much. Daniel snapped. You think this is easy. You think I wanted to disappear. I didn't get a choice, man. She sent me away. Then never came for me. Adam's voice rose. That's not true. She looked for you. Every day. Every year. She died waiting. Daniel turned slowly, his face hard, but his eyes broken. I know, he whispered. You got her letters. Daniel nodded, his voice raw. A few. A couple made it through. Most didn't. By the time I was old enough to search for her, she was gone. Neither of them spoke for a long time. 2 men. 2 sons. Both scarred by the same silence. Finally Daniel asked, Why now? Why come looking? Adam looked down at the photo of the boy. Because I didn't know you existed. Because she told me everything after she passed. And because, he added quietly, I think you deserve the truth too. Daniel sat down slowly at the table, like the weight of years had just dropped onto his shoulders. He looked up at Adam. She really looked for me. Adam nodded, eyes full. Every day. Daniel exhaled shakily. I have a son now. Name's Micah. He's 10. I never told him about any of this. Adam smiled softly. Maybe it's time. Outside, the sun began to set behind the trees, casting long golden shadows across the cabin floor. A new chapter was beginning, but some ghosts still weren't buried. Because the next day, a letter would arrive at Daniel's cabin. No return address, no name, just a message that would change everything once again. Part 2. The morning air was thick with mist when Daniel heard the mailbox creak. It wasn't unusual. He got the occasional bill, a catalog, maybe a school flyer for his son Micah. But this envelope was different. It was cream-colored, aged around the edges, sealed not with glue, but with wax. Deep red wax stamped with an unfamiliar symbol. A single capital R circled twice. There was no name, no return address. Just 2 words handwritten on the front. For Daniel. He stood at the threshold of his cabin, fingers tightening around the envelope. Adam, standing just behind him, noticed the sudden tension. What is it? Daniel didn't answer right away. He turned the envelope over, inspecting every inch. "It's not from her," he said finally. "The handwriting's different. And Mom never used wax seals." Clara, who had stayed the night in a nearby inn, had returned early with fresh coffee. She took one look at the letter and stiffened. "I've seen that symbol before," she said slowly. "Your mother had a journal. There were drawings of that exact seal, circles and an R. But she always crossed it out." Adam stepped closer. "What did it mean?" Clara hesitated. "She never told me. But whenever I asked, she'd just say, 'Some truths are too dangerous to write down.'" Daniel slit the seal with a knife and unfolded the paper inside. The handwriting was crisp, tight, calculated. "Daniel, we've waited a long time for you to be ready. She thought she could hide you from us, but blood can't be buried forever. If you've received this, then the door has opened. We'll be in touch. You are not who you think you are." Daniel stared at the message, then at the others. "What the hell is this?" Adam took the letter from him, reading it aloud again as if trying to make it make sense. "We'll be in touch. You are not who you think you are. What does that even mean?" Clara looked pale. "I don't think your mother was just hiding Daniel from your father. I think she was hiding him from someone else." Adam turned to Daniel. "Does that letter mean anything to you? Did she ever talk about anything like this?" Daniel shook his head. "No. She never talked about anything past a certain point. My life before I moved in with her cousin is a blank. All I remember is shadows, people arguing, and being told to forget." Later that afternoon, while Micah was at school, the three of them returned to Margaret Reeves's house. Clara had remembered something strange, a false panel in the hallway closet. "I never thought much of it," she said. "I figured it was just water damage or bad flooring. But your mother always warned me not to touch that area." Daniel and Adam pulled away old coats and floorboards until they reached the panel. Sure enough, there was a narrow wooden seam. With a crowbar, Adam pried it loose. Inside was a long, thin metal lockbox, the kind you'd expect to see in a bank vault, not inside a suburban house. It was locked, but taped to the underside was a tiny envelope and a single brass key. Inside the envelope was another letter, this one unmistakably written by Margaret. "To whoever finds this, if it's you, Adam, or you, Daniel, then it means the silence has ended. This box contains the truth I never had the courage to tell. Not because I didn't love you, but because the truth could have destroyed you. Daniel, you weren't born into an accident. You were chosen. Adam, your job is to protect him now, even if you don't understand why. What's inside this box, others would kill to possess. That's why I buried it beneath everything I loved. Forgive me." Daniel's hand shook as he fit the key into the lockbox. Click. He opened it slowly. Inside was not money, not documents, but 3 items. A black and white photo of a man in military uniform, standing beside Margaret. The date on the back, 1989. A hospital bracelet labeled, "Baby Boy." Subject R1, confidential. And finally, a folded sheet of parchment with an emblem at the top. The same R encircled twice. The text on the paper was foreign, not in a different language but in a different format. Code. Rows of numbers and symbols. Daniel stared at it. "I don't understand any of this." Adam picked up the photo. "That's not your father," he said. "At least, not the one she told me about." Clara studied the bracelet. Subject R1. What the hell was she involved in? Adam ran his fingers over the coded paper, his legal mind firing on all cylinders. "This isn't just a code," he said slowly. "It's a cipher. Military grade. Maybe even classified. And that symbol," he added. "It's not just a logo. It's a seal." Daniel looked at both of them. "Seal of what?" Clara answered quietly. of a program that was supposed to be shut down decades ago. It was called Red Reach. Adam's brow furrowed. What was it? Clara hesitated. A genetic research operation. Secret. Allegedly run through military channels. They took infants with unique DNA. Trained them. Watched them. He paused. Rumors said some of them were turned into weapons. Silence filled the room. Daniel's face drained of color. You're saying I was part of this? Clara nodded. Your mother must have gotten out before they activated whatever plan they had for you. That's why she changed your last name. Why she hid you. Why she made everyone think she was just a lonely mother. Adam added. And why she made me promise never to look through her old things as a kid. Daniel looked down at the bracelet again. Subject R1. He whispered it like it was a name. That night, none of them slept. Daniel sat on his porch, staring up at the stars. Adam came out quietly and sat beside him. They didn't speak for a while. Just listened to the wind. Finally Daniel said, if what Clara said is true, then I'm not just a person. I'm a project. A file. Adam looked at him. You're my brother. That's what you are. Daniel chuckled bitterly. Even if I was designed to be something else. Adam smiled slightly. Then I guess I'll just have to help you rewrite the script. But even as he said it, Adam knew they were in the eye of the storm. Because if this Red Reach program had really existed, and if Daniel was once part of it, then someone out there still knew. And someone out there might want him back. As if on cue, a black car parked down the road that same night. No lights, no movement, just a silhouette behind the wheel, watching from the shadows. And on the dashboard, badge, with the same seal. The black car didn't move for hours. It just sat there, silent, parked in the trees beyond Daniel's cabin, partially hidden by shadows. But Daniel felt it, like a cold breath on the back of his neck. By morning it was gone. No tire marks, no footprints, just an empty patch of gravel, and a rising sense of dread. Adam sat at the kitchen table, tapping his pen against the edge of a notepad. Every item from the lockbox lay spread out before him. The ciphered document, the photo, the hospital bracelet. Clara returned from the porch, clutching a folded newspaper. You're going to want to see this, she said. She unfolded it and slid it across the table. Local scientist found dead under suspicious circumstances. Dr. Henry Mallon, 63, was discovered unresponsive in his rural home outside Silver Pines. Authorities suspect foul play. Mallon previously worked on classified military biotech research in the 1990s. Adam's eyes narrowed. What kind of research? Clara leaned closer. He was one of the lead biologists in the Red Reach program. Daniel froze. You're saying someone's killing people connected to it? Clara didn't answer. Because she didn't have to. Later that day, Adam contacted a former colleague from law school who now worked in federal archives. He didn't mention Daniel or Red Reach, just said he was researching an old cold case involving unethical trials. After some back and forth, he got a single tip. If you're serious about this, look for Project Lamia. That's what they called it after Red Reach officially ended. It moved private in 1998, buried under shell companies. You're chasing ghosts, Adam. Oh. But ghosts don't sit outside cabins in black cars. Meanwhile, Daniel couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. Every mirror, every window, every flicker of motion out of the corner of his eye. He started double-checking locks. Micah had to sleep at a neighbor's house, just in case. One night, while cleaning out the shed behind the cabin, Daniel found something wedged beneath an old tool cabinet. A recorder. Not the kind kids used. Professional-grade listening device. Its light was off. But the battery was warm. He stared at it for a long time before bringing it to Adam. Adam's face paled when he saw it. They're already inside, he said. Clara examined the device. This is government-grade surveillance. You don't just buy this off a shelf. Daniel exhaled sharply. They've been listening to everything. Or worse, Adam muttered. Recording everything. That night, Adam and Clara agreed it was time to get help, but from someone who knew how to deal with secrets. Someone from outside the system. That someone was Marcus Ellison, CIA. A man Adam once defended in court after a whistleblower case nearly cost Marcus his life and freedom. He owed Adam a favor. When he showed up, Daniel was surprised by how ordinary he looked. Faded jeans, gray hoodie, calm intense eyes. Marcus walked into the cabin, took one look at the ciphered document, and whistled. Well, he said, you boys are in deep. They sat around the fireplace that night, the cipher resting on the table like a ghost in plain sight. Marcus adjusted his glasses and pointed at the seal. This symbol belongs to a splinter cell called the Rook Order. Red Reach was their front, a way to test genetic anomalies and psychological traits in children. But once the public got wind of unethical testing, the official program shut down. He looked at Daniel. But that didn't stop the order. They went private, underground. They kept the research, kept the subjects, turned them into, well, not quite soldiers, not quite spies. Daniel's voice was hoarse. And I was one of them. Marcus nodded. You were Subject R1, their first viable prototype. Highest stability. But something happened. Breach. You were extracted by someone on the inside. Someone who disappeared with you and leaked enough information to bury the program. Adam whispered. My mother. Marcus nodded slowly. She must have been working on the inside, or knew someone who was. Whoever she was. She saved your life, Daniel. Clara spoke next. Dr. Mallon, the man in the newspaper. He worked on the project. Maybe he got too close to something. Maybe he knew Margaret was still alive. Marcus rubbed his jaw. And if the order found out she left breadcrumbs behind? Adam interrupted. Then they'd come looking for them. Daniel stood up, fists clenched. So what now? They watch me. Wait for me to slip up. Marcus looked up. No. He leaned forward, tone grave. They'll test you first. That night, Daniel barely slept. Every noise felt like a threat. Every gust of wind like a warning. Around 3 a.m. he stepped outside for air. The stars were scattered like broken glass across the sky. Then he saw it. Figure. Standing just beyond the tree line. Unmoving. Watching. Daniel called out. Who's there? No answer. He took one step forward. Then another. The figure didn't move. Daniel stepped off the porch, hands clenched, heart pounding. 30 feet. 20. In. But when he reached the spot, there was no one. Only a carved symbol on the tree. The same circled R. Beneath it, a single word etched into the bark. Remember. Daniel stormed back inside, pale and shaking. He showed Marcus the tree photo. Marcus didn't hesitate. They're escalating. Leaving symbols, sending letters. They're trying to awaken something. Adam frowned. Awaken what? Marcus looked directly at Daniel. You. Later that day, Marcus decrypted part of the cipher. It was a list. Coordinates. But one name stood out at the top of the document. R1, Daniel Ward. Status. Dormant. Daniel stared at it. Dormant. Adam whispered. What happens when he's not dormant anymore? Marcus didn't answer. That evening, Micah returned home early from school. Daniel hugged him longer than usual. He noticed the boy was carrying something in his backpack. What's this? He asked. Micah pulled it out. Small envelope. Cream-colored. Sealed in red wax. Micah held the envelope like it was on fire. I didn't take it, he said softly. It was already in my locker. Daniel stared at the red wax seal, chilled by how familiar it looked. The same R symbol etched into the tree. Now staring back from the envelope. He exchanged a quick look with Adam, then turned to Micah. Did anyone see who left it? Micah shook his head. No name. No note. Just this. Daniel knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing bringing it home. Go inside, okay? Let us handle it. As Micah stepped away, Daniel ran his fingers across the seal. The wax was fresh. Whoever left this was close. Very close. They opened the envelope under Marcus's direction, using gloves and photographing every step. Inside was a single page. Yellowed, handwritten, no salutation. But it wasn't just a message. It was a warning. Dormancy is ending. We've watched from the veil, but the veil is thinning. Subject R1 must not awaken. Not here, not now. The others are already stirring. You've been activated for containment. Adam looked up. Containment. Marcus exhaled slowly. They're not trying to kill you. He turned to Daniel. They're trying to control you. Clara set the page down, eyes narrowed. We need to leave. Tonight. No, Daniel said firmly. Running is what they want. They're pushing me. Testing me. Adam stood beside him. And if they push too far? Daniel looked at him, face blank. Then they'll see what happens when I push back. But inside he wasn't calm. Inside he was a storm. And something inside that storm was waking up. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. He paced the kitchen floor, restless, as the clock ticked into early morning hours. He kept thinking about his mother, Margaret. How much had she known? And how much had she sacrificed to protect a boy who wasn't her own? Suddenly, Clara appeared in the doorway. Adam, she whispered. You need to see this. She held up her phone. On the screen was a grainy photo, time-stamped just hours earlier, taken by a highway surveillance camera outside town. Black car. Same license plate. Same make. Same mirror crack on the left. It wasn't gone. Had just moved. They rushed to Daniel's room. His bed was untouched. The window open. Curtains blowing in the wind. Outside, the forest was dead silent. No owls. No crickets. Just tension so thick it pressed against your chest. Clara found tracks. Faint, booted, heading toward the lake trail. Adam grabbed a flashlight and followed. But just as he passed the old woodpile, something moved. Fast. Too fast. A blur of shadow darted across the path. Adam spun, flashlight beam slicing through the dark. Daniel. No answer. Marcus. Still nothing. A sharp crack from deeper in the trees. A branch snapping. Then another. A step. Fast. Running. Adam chased the sound, breath ragged, heart thudding, until he reached a small clearing. That's where he saw him. Daniel. Kneeling. In front of a man tied to a tree. Bloodied. Bruised. Barely conscious. Marcus arrived seconds later, gun drawn, assessing the scene. Daniel didn't move. Didn't even flinch. He followed me, he said quietly. I led him here. Adam approached slowly. Who is he? Daniel looked up. He called himself Ren. Said he's part of the containment team. But he's not. He's a tracker. Recruiter. From the Order. Marcus checked the man's ID. It was blank. No name. Just a barcode. Typical. Daniel stood, eyes distant. I remember him. From when I was little. He clenched his fists. He was the one who used to whisper in the dark. Told me to be quiet. Told me pain was growth. Adam stared at the unconscious man. And now, Daniel's voice dropped to a cold whisper. He told me the others are coming. That I have something they want. Clara whispered. What others? Daniel shook his head. He didn't say. Back at the cabin, Marcus searched Ren's pockets and found a USB key. Adam and Clara booted up an isolated laptop to investigate. What they found wasn't just files. It was a database. Coordinates. Then, full subject index. Adam scrolled down, heart racing, until he found Daniel's name. Subject R1. Status. Dormant. Stability index. 97.2%. Threat level. Extreme. Protocol monitor. Avoid provocation. If activated, execute Protocol Athena. Clara looked confused. What's Protocol Athena? Marcus's jaw tightened. It's their final measure. If they can't contain a subject. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Daniel stared at the screen. Under his entry was a final line. Sleeper beacon activated. He whispered. What's a sleeper beacon? Marcus replied. It means something inside you, a memory, a code, a trigger, has already been set off. And now it's counting down. That night they kept watch in shifts. Marcus sat with the unconscious man, now gagged and restrained. Daniel stood on the porch, staring at the stars. Adam joined him, sipping black coffee. You okay? Daniel didn't answer. After a moment he said, I'm starting to remember things. Adam looked over. Like what? Daniel's eyes glistened. A room. Cold. Metal floors. A mirror that wasn't a mirror. People in white coats. And a voice. He paused. It wasn't my mom's voice. But it told me to run. Told me to forget. Told me to never look back. Adam felt a lump rise in his throat. What if you remembering is what they want? Daniel finally looked at him. Then maybe I should give them something to be afraid of. Inside the house, Clara noticed something odd on the USB logs. A hidden folder. Encrypted. She handed it to Marcus, who bypassed the shell encryption in under a minute. Inside, video files. Dates ranging back decades. Clips, footage, some grainy, some crystal clear. But all of them, children. Experiments. They clicked on one. A young boy, strapped to a chair, electrodes on his temples. He was screaming. Faint audio from researchers in the background. Subject R3 not responding. Begin amplification. Another clip. Subject R9 displayed empathy in response to pain stimulus. Recalibrating. And another. Subject R1 showing no memory of prior sessions. Memory suppression at 84%. Success. Clara slammed the laptop shut. Adam was already standing. R3. R9. There were more like him. Marcus nodded. Daniel wasn't the only one. They printed the logs. 17 names. Most marked as deceased. 3 marked as MIA. 1 marked as unknown. Subject R1. Daniel. But one more detail stood out. Each subject had a corresponding handler listed, except R1. His handler line simply read, redacted, direct intervention by subject M. Adam's heart stopped. M for Margaret. Clara covered her mouth. Your mom wasn't just a nurse. She was the one who broke him out. Adam whispered. She died protecting this. Protecting him. Outside, Daniel stood beneath the trees, the wind lifting his hair. He looked up at the night sky and felt something shift inside him. Memory. Sensation. A code he didn't understand. But something was unlocking. Part 3. Daniel stood in the dark forest, eyes lifted to the stars, as if something just above them whispered his name. The air around him shifted, colder, heavier. A sound vibrated in his ears. Not like a scream or a whisper, but both at once. Like something remembering him back. And then, flash. Not lightning. Not in the sky. But in his mind. It hit him like an earthquake inside his skull. Chair. Metal. His wrist strapped down. A man in a lab coat smiling like it was routine. R1 initiating baseline scan. Begin exposure in 3, 2, 1. Then pain. Blinding, cracking, fire behind the eyes pain. But the strangest part. He wasn't screaming. He was silent. If he knew the pain already. Had lived in it. Was born from it. Back in the cabin, Marcus and Clara watched him through the window. Daniel standing stone still among the trees. Clara frowned. He hasn't moved in 10 minutes. Adam stepped beside her, anxiety building. I'm going out there. Marcus held up a hand. No sudden moves. If his memory is unlocking, we don't know what state he's in. Clara swallowed. Like trauma-induced disassociation, Marcus replied. Like a nuclear warhead trying to remember its launch code. Adam walked out slowly, crunching leaves underfoot. Daniel, he said gently. Hey man, you alright? No answer. Just a deep inhale, like Daniel was trying to breathe in a language no one else could speak. He turned. Eyes wide. But they were glowing. Not brightly, not obviously. But in the dark, Adam saw it. Flicker. Gold like fire behind glass. Daniel blinked. The glow was gone. But something else had arrived. I remember her, Daniel said quietly. Adam took a step closer. Who? Daniel looked past him into a memory. She had a silver pin in her hair. Always humming. Called me number one. But with love. Not like the others. Adam exhaled, heart pounding. Margaret. Daniel nodded slowly. She was there. In the lab. But only sometimes. She'd smuggle me real food. Touch my hand when the shocks were too strong. He looked at Adam. She risked everything to get me out. I was never her son. Adam's breath caught. But Daniel stepped forward, eyes fierce. She chose me anyway. Back inside, Clara had decrypted a new section of the USB logs. She read aloud. Subject M violated clearance. Breached genetic firewall. Extracted subject R1 from site Theta under duress. Internal security failure. Initiate erasure protocol. Terminate asset. Adam's throat dried. So my mom didn't just die because she kept a secret. She died because she was the secret. Clara whispered. They didn't just erase her life. They erased who she was to protect Daniel. Later that night, Daniel pulled out the original letter again. His mother's final words. He reread the last part. I never had a choice. But when I saw you, chose you anyway, even if it meant they'd come for me. Even if you forgot me. One day you'll remember. And when you do, forgive yourself. You didn't ask to be made. But you were meant to be more than what they built. Daniel closed his eyes and whispered, I remember, Mom. Suddenly, a high-pitched sound pierced the air. Brill. Mechanical. Clara jumped to her feet. What is that? Adam checked the monitors. It's not from here. It's coming from. Marcus burst in. The woods. Get downstairs. Now. They grabbed weapons, flashlights, and sprinted through the back exit into the forest. The sound was pulsing like a sonar beacon gone mad. That's when they saw it. Black tower. Not more than 12 feet tall. Almost invisible against the trees. Covered in camouflage netting. Hadn't been there yesterday. Clara whispered. What the hell is that? Marcus froze, squinting. That's a signal spire. Field deployed. Long-range tracking. Adam stared. It's tracking Daniel. No, Marcus muttered. It's activating him. Daniel stepped forward slowly. Eyes locked on the tower. The frequency shifted, rising higher. He winced, grabbing his temples. And collapsed. Clara ran to him. Daniel! He was shaking. Eyes rolled back. Chest convulsing. Adam knelt beside him, yelling. Talk to me, Daniel. And then he stopped. Open. Well. But when he looked up, they weren't his eyes anymore. Glowing. Golden white. No emotion. No recognition. Just silence. Clara backed away. That's not him. Marcus raised his weapon. Do not move, he ordered. Daniel stood slowly, staring at him. I know who you are, he said. But the voice didn't sound like Daniel's. It was deeper. Mechanical. Filtered. You were stationed at Site Theta, Daniel continued, stepping forward. You oversaw 4 terminations. Marcus's finger tensed on the trigger. How do you know that? Daniel didn't blink. Because I was watching. Suddenly, he vanished. No sound. No wind. Just gone. Clara screamed. Where is he? Adam spun around. Then crash. Marcus was thrown into a tree, unconscious before he hit the ground. Daniel reappeared behind him, calm as ice. Clara pulled out the tranquilizer gun, hands shaking. "Daniel, please." He turned to her, and his eyes flickered. For one brief moment, they were his again. He blinked and collapsed. When he awoke hours later, he was tied down to the bed in the basement. Not out of fear, out of protection. Adam sat beside him, exhausted. "You back?" he asked softly. Daniel nodded. "I lost time again." Clara sat on the stairs. "It wasn't you." "Not really. Something took over," Daniel whispered. "It's not just memory coming back. Command protocols. Deep-rooted commands. They embedded them so far inside me, I don't even know which thoughts are mine." Adam looked down. "What if they made you for something you're not ready to remember?" Daniel shook his head. "No, they didn't make me. They awakened something that already existed." That night the group argued. Marcus wanted to move locations. Clara suggested going dark. Adam pushed for one more scan of the encrypted files. But Daniel remained silent until he stood, untied himself, and spoke clearly. "I want to go back." Everyone stared. "Back where?" Adam asked. Daniel's voice was calm. "Site Theta." Clara's eyes widened. "That place is buried. Shut down years ago." "No," Daniel said. "Not buried. Hidden." He looked up. "And I know where it is now." The USB file he'd watched unlocked a single map coordinate before blacking out. Just one. But that's all he needed. At 3:14 a.m., Daniel left a note. No one heard him leave. No one saw which direction he took. Just the rustle of trees and the long, low howl of the wind behind him. Adam found the note an hour later. It read, "If I don't come back, don't come looking for me. But if I do, I'll come back with answers." And with every piece of the past they tried to bury. The world looked different at 4 a.m. Not just darker, colder, like it was holding its breath. Daniel stood at the edge of a forgotten road, dirt and moss swallowing its edges. The trees here didn't sway. They loomed. The moon, barely peeking through the thick clouds above, cast more shadow than light. He checked the coordinates again. One red dot blinking. Waiting. He wasn't lost. He was exactly where they didn't want him to be. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Adam stared at the empty bed. The note still trembled in his fingers. "He's gone," he whispered. Clara stepped in behind him, eyes red from sleepless worry. "We should have locked the doors." Marcus, arms crossed, replied flatly. "Wouldn't have stopped him. He's beyond locks now." Adam ran a hand through his hair. "Then we follow him," Marcus scoffed, "and walk straight into a trap. That's what they want." Adam snapped. "They already have him." Marcus leaned forward. "Exactly. And they might be waiting for the rest of us to chase him, like sheep into a snare." Clara interjected. "Unless he's going there to destroy what's left, or learn the truth." Silence. Then Clara added softly, "And he shouldn't do it alone." Daniel stepped off the road and into the dense forest. The trees grew unnaturally straight here, as if placed, measured, and then he saw it, clearing. At its center, a rusted hatch, half buried beneath fallen leaves and ivy. He knelt. The steel looked untouched for decades. But when his fingers brushed the surface, pulsed, just once, as if it recognized him. He found the old keypad, brushed off the dust and stared. 10 digits. No labels. Only a small black screen. Suddenly his fingertips twitched, as if something guided them. Access granted. The hatch unlocked with a grinding, mechanical groan. The ground trembled, and the air suddenly felt thinner. Beneath his feet, Site Theta was waking up. 30 miles away, Clara's laptop buzzed violently. The screen flashed red. "Security breach detected. Site Theta. Access logged." Adam looked at the screen. He got in. Clara nodded. And now they know he did. Marcus paled. If the system's still active, then the protocols are too. Clara bit her lip. Which means Daniel might not be the only thing they left behind. Adam grabbed his jacket. Gear up. We're not waiting. The ladder down the shaft creaked under Daniel's weight. The deeper he climbed, the more the silence pressed in. There was no smell of decay. No dust. No dripping water. It was clean. Preserved. Waiting. He reached the bottom and stepped into a long hallway. Fluorescent lights flickered on in a sequence, like the building was escorting him. He passed glass rooms, observation bays, old steel tables, wires hanging like veins, restraints bolted to metal chairs. And on the wall, a plaque. Department of Adaptive Intelligence. Genesis Wing. Beneath it, a quote etched into brass. We do not create monsters. We unveil what lies beneath the skin. Daniel's breath caught. This place hadn't just experimented on him. It believed in what it did. He walked further until he reached a chamber labeled R1. His heart sank. The door opened for him without a code. The room was larger than the others. Screens surrounded a circular chair in the center, still illuminated by a single overhead bulb. He stepped inside. A projector lit up behind him. Suddenly, a hologram filled the room. A man in a white coat. Confident. Void of empathy. Subject R1. If you're seeing this, it means you've returned to the source. And that means the programming failed. Daniel stiffened. We built you to adapt, not to question. You were designed to blend into society until your trigger awakened what we embedded. And yet something disrupted that. Her. The man leaned forward. Margaret. Daniel's fists clenched. She tampered with your protocol, masked your purpose behind human emotion. She thought love could overwrite architecture. Foolish. The hologram glitched slightly, then continued. But if you're still here, it means you're conflicted. So let me offer you a choice. A panel opened beside the chair. 2 buttons. One green, one red. Green resets your memory, reawakens your original programming. You'll forget everything, including her. Red destroys this facility. But in doing so, you'll erase every file, every other subject, every experiment. The proof. The past. Make your decision, R1. You have 60 seconds. Daniel stared at the buttons. His reflection looked back at him in the polished glass. Was he still Daniel? Was he ever? He remembered Margaret's eyes. The way she'd held his hand. Risked everything. She didn't try to control him. She tried to protect him. He didn't want to be a weapon. He wanted to be a man. He reached for the red button. Just then, a voice echoed behind him. Don't. He turned. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Clara. Her face pale, soaked from the rain above. Adam behind her. Gun drawn. Breath ragged. You destroy this place, Clara said. And you destroy the only chance we have of exposing what they did. To you. To others. Daniel froze. What do you mean? Adam held up a tablet. Before we came, we hacked the system. There are other names. Other facilities. Other Daniels. If you blow this place, we lose every lead. Clara stepped forward. We need the data. To save them. Daniel looked at the red button again. The weight of it. Release. Purge. End. But now, he realized something far more powerful. Responsibility. He stepped away from the panel. There's a third choice, he said quietly. Adam frowned. What? Daniel turned to the chair. The place he once sat as a test subject. He placed his palm on the armrest and whispered, I want it all back. The system paused, then scanned his voice. Voice pattern accepted. Initiating full memory restoration. Clara stepped forward. What are you doing? Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm not hiding anymore. The lights dimmed. A surge of electricity pulsed through the walls. And then, scream. Not from Daniel, but from the building. Alarms wailed. Lights exploded in sequence. The entire hallway began to tremble. Clara yelled. The system's rejecting him. Adam shouted. No, it's uploading. On the monitors, thousands of files scrolled. R1, R2, R3. Facilities across the globe. Coordinates. And one word stamped over many. Terminated. Clara gasped. They've been wiping them out. Daniel stood still, eyes closed, absorbing every truth, every horror. And then, he opened his eyes. Where? Clear. I remember everything, he whispered. Outside, above ground, the clouds split with a sudden thunder. Rain fell like knives slicing the still air. A satellite above adjusted its coordinates. The system had detected movement again. And deep within a hidden control room hundreds of miles away, a red phone rang. Voice picked up. R1 has reactivated. Oz. Proceed to phase 2. The rain didn't stop. It came harder now, sharp and unrelenting, like the sky itself was warning them to leave. But inside the facility, Daniel wasn't moving. He stood in the center of the Genesis wing, eyes wide open. And yet, he didn't blink. Not once. Adam whispered. Is he breathing? Clara took a cautious step forward. Daniel! The lights above flickered. And then, Daniel turned to them. Low, smooth, mechanical. But his eyes, they were very, very human. I remember my first day here, he said, his voice calm and haunting. They strapped me to that chair, told me I was special, that my pain would build a future. Clara's lips parted. And now, Daniel stepped past the chair. Now I know the truth. He turned to them, the air humming with static. They never wanted a future, just control. Outside, Marcus kept watch near the van. His fingers tapped the steering wheel, his nerves on fire. The tracker on the dash beeped once, then twice, then rapidly. A red dot blinked on the screen, getting closer, much closer. He leaned forward. No, no, no. Suddenly the van shook violently. Headlights burst. The windshield cracked like a spiderweb. And from the trees, a figure stepped out, tall, suited, and wearing a white mask with no features. Only a thin red slash across its mouth. Marcus opened the glove box, pulled out a short-barrel rifle. Before he could cock it, crash, the van door flew off its hinges. Sparks lit the air. The masked figure grabbed Marcus by the neck and yanked him out into the mud. He kicked, struggled. But the thing didn't speak, didn't grunt, didn't bleed. Just held him up like a trophy. And whispered, in a voice like wind through broken glass. R1 must not remember. Everything went black. Inside Site Theta, alarms screamed again. Clara looked up. Adam checked his wrist screen. We've got company. Daniel turned toward a nearby console. His hands already moving faster than before. The system responded instantly, recognizing him. Shutting down surface access, he said. They can't trap us inside. But Marcus, Clara began. Daniel looked over his shoulder. He's not on the sensors. Someone took him. Clara's heart sank. Adam clenched his fists. Then we go after him. Daniel paused. You should. He stepped back from the console. Take the van. Get to safe ground. I'll draw them in. Adam stared. You're not serious. Daniel looked right at him. I'm not the same man who came down that ladder. He glanced at his own reflection in the screen. I don't even know if I'm a man anymore. Clara stepped closer. Daniel, whatever they made you into, it's not stronger than who you chose to become. Daniel looked at her, emotion flickering in his eyes. Painful, real, but brief. Outside, the masked figure dragged Marcus toward a black SUV idling beneath the trees. In the passenger seat, a woman in a white lab coat watched silently. Her hair was gray, pulled into a tight bun. A scar ran across her right eyebrow, clean and surgical. She sipped coffee from a thermos and tapped a tablet screen. "He's remembered," she said without looking up. The masked figure paused. "Do we proceed?" it asked, voice artificial and layered. She nodded slowly. "We activate Omega Protocol." The figure's head tilted. "But the cost?" "Doesn't matter," she cut in coldly. "We never intended for him to survive the retrieval. If he resists, erase the facility, along with anyone inside." She looked up at Marcus, bloodied and breathing hard in the mud. "And make sure this one watches." As Clara and Adam raced back toward the surface elevator, Daniel remained behind. He tapped into the mainframe. He wasn't just searching anymore. He was hunting. One by one he accessed files, objects, projects, blueprints, and then he saw it. Project Omega. Failsafe. One that involved him and others like him. They weren't built to live. They were built to activate and then expire. Daniel's face tightened. "They knew I'd come back," he muttered. "They always knew." Suddenly, a countdown appeared on the console. Omega Protocol. Initiated. 12 o'clock minutes until site purge. Daniel's blood ran cold. He turned. But the door was already sealed behind him. From the hallway came footsteps. Heavy. Measured. Not running. Hunting. Adam and Clara burst from the tunnel exit into pouring rain. Soaked instantly. They reached the van. It was empty. Doors blown out. No Marcus. Adam looked around, gun drawn. "Marcus!" Clara saw something in the mud. Tracks. Not one person. 3. Being dragged. Adam followed her gaze. "They've got him." She turned back to the shaft. "Daniel's still in there. If Omega's live, the whole place will self-destruct." Adam shook his head. "We don't leave him." "We already did once," Clara said quietly. She reached into her jacket, pulled out a data drive. "His memories. I backed them up when he reconnected." Adam blinked. "You what?" "I knew they'd wipe him again if they got the chance," she said. "Now we have everything." Adam looked at the forest beyond. And at the dark sky above. "Then let's go bring him home." Inside, Daniel faced the figure in the hallway. It wasn't masked. It wasn't armed. It looked like him. Same height, same eyes, same scars, but colder. "Well, hello R1, it said. Daniel didn't speak. The doppelganger continued. "I'm R0, the prototype, the one they scrapped before you were made." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Why scrap you?" R0 smirked. "Because I didn't forget." It tilted its head. "They made you perfect. Blight. Conflicted. Human. But you were never built to survive." Daniel took a step forward. "Then why are you here?" "To complete your cycle," R0 said, raising its hand. A blade slid from its wrist. "You either submit or expire." Daniel whispered. "Not today." The hallway exploded in motion. Fists collided. Steel rang out. Blood hit the floor. And sparks flew from shattered light panels. They moved like shadows. Fast. Brutal. Daniel slammed R0 into a wall, but the prototype twisted, wrapping its legs around Daniel's neck and flipping him onto the ground. They grappled. Snarling. Until Daniel drove a knee into R0's side hard. The doppelganger stumbled. Daniel rose, panting. "You forgot one thing," he said. R0 looked up. "What's that?" Daniel pressed his palm to the wall. Hidden panel slid open, revealing a syringe. Glowing blue. "I know where they hid the override," Daniel said. "And you're not the only one who remembers." He stabbed the syringe into his own neck. The blue liquid surged through his veins. His eyes glowed for a second, then dimmed. Daniel stepped forward, calm again, and with a final blow, drove his fist into R0's chest, shattering the prototype's core. Collapsed, sparking. With 2 minutes left on the countdown, Daniel limped toward the exit. The elevator had already begun rising. Clara's voice echoed from above. "Come on. Come on." Daniel looked up. Hand reached down. He grabbed it. And for the first time in years, he felt whole. The elevator reached the surface. Behind them, the ground trembled. Adam hit the gas. And Site Theta imploded. A mushroom of dirt and fire rose into the sky. It fell like snow. Daniel didn't look back. Not once. He had what he needed now. The files. The truth. And for the first time, a mission of his own. Part 4. The van sped through the drenched forest road. Tires slipping on the mud. Branches clawing at the windows like fingers trying to pull them back. Daniel sat in the back seat, soaked and silent, staring at his trembling hands. They didn't feel like his. They didn't feel real at all. Clara glanced back at him through the rearview mirror. "You okay?" she asked softly. He didn't respond. His eyes were still glowing faintly, a side effect of the serum he injected during the final fight with R0. Adam leaned forward from the passenger seat. "We need to lay low. Somewhere off-grid. There's a cabin upstate," Clara said. "My dad's. He's gone. Nobody checks there anymore." Adam nodded. "Drive." Daniel didn't hear any of it. Because in his mind, he was somewhere else. He saw flashes of metal and wires. His own body, laid open on an operating table. Needles sewing muscles. Monitors flashing code instead of vitals. Dr. Kepler standing above him, whispering to someone off-screen. "She's not ready to know. The mother believes he died. Let it stay that way." The mother. His mother. Daniel's eyes shot open. He gasped, chest heaving. Adam turned around instantly. Hey, breathe." Clara pulled the van off the road into a clearing. Rain still poured. Daniel shoved open the side door and stumbled into the grass. He dropped to his knees, fists clenched in the mud. Clara knelt beside him, shielding him from the rain with her coat. "What did you see?" He looked at her, eyes wide with something beyond fear. "Kepler lied." He turned to Adam. "My mom. They told her I was dead. She never stopped waiting for me." They reached the cabin at dawn. A crooked two-story with moss climbing up its wood panels, windows fogged over from age and dampness. Inside it smelled like cedar and mold. Clara lit a fire while Adam set up a makeshift surveillance jammer on the roof. Daniel wondered. The walls were lined with old photographs. Clara's parents, her childhood, moments frozen in time. He touched one of the frames, the glass cold beneath his fingers. "They didn't make you forget all of it," Clara said gently. Daniel shook his head. "Just the parts that made me human." She took the data drive from her coat pocket and held it out. "Everything they stole. It's here." Daniel stared at it, his hand trembling as he reached out. He took it, held it. He plugged it into Clara's old laptop. The screen flickered. Lines of code streamed past, then slowed. Videos, files, logs. And at the center, one folder. R1, memories locked. He clicked, and there it was. Video. It opened on a hospital room. His mother sat at the edge of a bed, holding a small boy. Maybe 6, maybe 7. His eyes were wide, frayed. There was a scar on his temple. She brushed the boy's hair back. "I know they say you'll forget me," she whispered. "But I won't forget you." The boy said nothing. She smiled through tears. "Wherever you go, Daniel. No matter who they make you become, I will always be waiting." She kissed his forehead. Then the camera cut off. Daniel's hand shook on the keyboard. Clara stepped back. Adam stood in the doorway, watching silently. The room was still. Only the sound of the fire crackled in the background. Daniel whispered, "She knew." "She never stopped hoping," Clara said softly. He turned to them both. "She's still alive. I have to find her." Adam hesitated. "Are you sure that's smart? We don't know who's still watching." Daniel looked at the screen again. She deserves to know the truth. At the edge of the city, in a small senior care facility hidden behind rusted gates, a woman sat in a wheelchair, staring at the rain through cracked windows. Her name tag read, Martha Rivers. She held a folded letter in her lap. The ink had faded. The paper had thinned. But she read it every day. Every single day. Mom, I'll come back. Promise. Just a little more time. Love, Daniel. It was the last letter she ever received from her son. 19 years ago. The nurses assumed he had died in war. Or disappeared. Or worse. But she knew better. She could feel it in her bones. He's not gone, she whispered. The nurse smiled politely. Let's get you to bed, Martha. But Martha didn't move. Her eyes suddenly flicked to the gate outside. A black SUV had parked at the curb. Two men in suits stepped out. One of them wore a red armband. The nurse noticed too. Strange. We're not expecting visitors. Martha didn't blink. They're not visitors, she said. They're cleaners. The nurse chuckled nervously. Excuse me. But Martha was already wheeling herself back, toward the old elevator. They've found him. That means they'll come for me next. Back at the cabin, Daniel moved quickly. He packed a bag. Clara tried to slow him down. Daniel, think this through. If they even suspect she's alive, they'll use her against you. He paused. Then I'll get to her first. Adam folded his arms. And then what? Just stroll into her life and say, Hey Mom, I'm your weaponized clone son? Daniel looked up sharply. I'm not a clone. Adam nodded slowly. No, you're not. But they made sure everyone else would think you are. He held out a file. One of the documents from the drive. Birth certificate. Daniel Rivers. Status. Deceased, classified. Daniel stared at it. His real identity. His real death. Orchestrated. Sealed. Hidden. He whispered. They killed me on paper so they could own me in life. That night, Clara sat beside Daniel on the cabin porch. The storm had passed. Fog clung to the trees like ghosts in the dark. Daniel looked up at the stars. Do you think she'll know me? Clara didn't answer at first. Then quietly said, She'll know your heart. That's something they could never take. Daniel nodded. But in the back of his mind, he felt something else. Something distant, tugging at his thoughts. Not fear, not doubt, but a question. If he found her, would she still want him? Miles away, inside the black SUV, the two suited men watched the care home from a hill. R1 is active. The memory sync is complete, one said into a mic. A voice on the other end responded. Begin Operation Fold. Terminate all witnesses. We cannot risk emotional leakage. The man adjusted his collar. Copy. He stepped out of the vehicle, flicked open a steel case, and pulled out a small metal device the size of a coin. He pressed it onto the wall of the care facility. It began to blink. Red. Faster. Faster. Inside, Martha's elevator stopped at the basement level. She wheeled herself into a small maintenance room. There, behind a rusted panel, was a lockbox. She pulled it open. Inside, flip phone. He dialed. The number had dust in its memory, but it still connected. A voice answered. Secure line 9. Identify. She said one word. Motherboard. The voice paused, then replied. R1 has reconnected. Martha closed her eyes. Then the war just restarted. It was still dark when Daniel stepped out of the cabin. The forest around him was silent. Too silent. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. He zipped up his jacket, the bag slung over one shoulder, and tightened the strap on his wrist communicator. Behind him, Clara stood in the doorway, arms folded. You don't have to do this alone, she said quietly. Daniel turned, his voice low. If they catch me, they'll kill her. Then let us help. Adam stepped beside her, holding a black case. He opened it slowly. revealing a sleek earpiece, a tracking watch, and a modified pulse disruptor. "Field kit," Adam said. "Latest tech. They won't be able to trace your signal if you bounce it through 3 ghost nodes." Daniel took the gear and nodded. But his eyes were distant, focused. "I was never meant to be human," he whispered. "But she made me one again." He turned toward the forest path and walked into the dark. Back in the city, the care home was a war zone. The explosion had ripped through the east wing, reducing it to rubble. First responders had cordoned off the scene, but someone else was already there, blending in, silent, unnoticed. A woman in a slate gray coat, short red hair, as like frozen steel. She flipped her badge at the perimeter. "Homeland, Division 7, Clearance, Sigma." The officer nodded. She ducked under the tape and surveyed the wreckage. Then she knelt beside what was once the elevator shaft. Her fingers found a melted coin-sized device near the impact point. She picked it up with tweezers, studying the insignia burned into the surface. "Red protocol," she muttered. "They're panicking." Another agent approached. "No sign of the Rivers woman, ma'am." She vanished before impact. It's like she knew. The woman's expression didn't change. She always knows. Martha Rivers was 3 miles away, wearing a nurse's coat, walking with a cane, and boarding a southbound train under the name Helen Moore. She moved through the crowd like smoke, quiet and unnoticed. She found a window seat, sat down and pulled out the flip phone. The signal still held. A voice crackled through. "R1 is in motion," she whispered. "He's coming to find me." The voice paused. "Then you both need to vanish. The program is active again." Martha's eyes filled with something that wasn't quite fear. It was something heavier, older. "I won't run again," she said. "I left him once. I won't do it twice." Daniel moved like a shadow through the city. Each street felt like a memory he didn't know he had. Every corner carried echoes of a life erased. He passed a playground and froze. There beneath the slide, a faded mural of a boy in a red cape, drawn in chalk. His own handwriting scrawled beneath it. "Super Danny saves the world." He couldn't breathe. He knelt beside the mural, fingers brushing over the faded chalk. His chest tightened. Clara's voice came through the earpiece. "Daniel, are you at Checkpoint Alpha?" He didn't answer. He just whispered, "I used to play here." Adam monitored the live map from the van. Dozens of satellites. Hundreds of data threads. One stood out, pinged on a ghost node. "That's her," he said. "Martha. She's moving south." Clara leaned over his shoulder. "How?" Adam pulled up a surveillance frame. A blurry image of a woman in a crowded train station. "Oh, flip phone." Clara gasped. "She made contact. Which means they'll be tracking her." Adam tapped furiously. "Daniel needs to intercept before they do." He pressed the comm. "Daniel. Priority intercept. Track 57. Southline. Subject is Martha Rivers, alias Helen Moore. 14 minutes." Daniel sprinted through the back alleys. Every footfall echoed off the bricks like a countdown. He vaulted a dumpster, slid under scaffolding, and burst through the terminal's side entrance. The lights flickered overhead. Announcements garbled through old speakers. "South Line. Track 57. Now boarding." He moved like a ghost, eyes scanning. On the far platform. Woman. Gray coat. His breath caught. He stepped forward, then stopped. What if she didn't recognize him? What if he was wrong? What if this memory was just another part of the program? Martha felt him before she saw him. Her eyes lifted slowly. Across the tracks, a man stood beneath the flickering light. Broad shoulders, face half in shadow, but the eyes. Rose dropped the cane, took one step forward, then another, and then she whispered, "Danny." The crowd parted. No one else seemed to see it happening. Time froze. He stepped across the tracks, through the hush to the other side. He stood in front of her, mouth dry, eyes wide. "It's me," he said. She raised a trembling hand and placed it on his cheek. "You found me," she breathed. And then tears spilled. They fell into each other. Years collapsing into seconds. Pain melting into warmth. For the first time in 20 years. Mother and son stood in the same light. But not for long. Clara's voice cracked through the earpiece. "Daniel, get out." They're inbound. 4 heat signatures, perimeter west. Daniel's face turned hard. He grabbed Martha's hand. "Come with me." "But the train." "There's no train," he said. "There never was." He pulled her down the stairwell, ducking past vending machines and locked doors. Above them, the shadows began to move. Black suits, phasers, guns. Clara watched it all from her drone feed. "Exit Route C is blocked. You've got one chance. Maintenance tunnel under Sector B." Daniel ran. Martha clung to him, coughing from the sprint. The underground air choked with dust and oil. A siren began to sound. They reached a locked grate. Daniel slammed his fist into the control panel. Spark, twitched, then hissed open. They crawled through just as bullets ripped through the hallway behind them. In the control van, Adam cursed. They were waiting for this moment. It was a trap. Clara turned to him, her face pale. "Then who gave her the phone?" Adam looked back at the screen and paused. "That's what I'm afraid to find out." Inside the tunnel, Martha collapsed against the wall. I can't run anymore." Daniel knelt beside her, pulling out a water pouch. "You don't have to," he said. She grabbed his arm suddenly. "Danny, there's something you need to know." He looked into her eyes. There was fear there. Not of the men chasing them, but of him. "They didn't just take you," she whispered. "They cloned you." He froze. "What?" She nodded slowly. "But something went wrong. You weren't just a weapon. You started remembering." Daniel shook his head, backing away. "No, I'm real." "You are," she said. "But you're also something more." She pulled a flash drive from beneath her coat and held it out. "They didn't just create you. They feared you." Scene opens in near total darkness. The tunnel pulsed with silence. A silence so deep it almost echoed. Daniel sat still, his back against the cold concrete, his mind running faster than his pulse. Across from him, Martha's breath was ragged. She held out the flash drive with both hands, like it was sacred, like it might explode. "They didn't just create you," she repeated. "They created others." Her voice shook. "But you were the only one who remembered me." Daniel's hand trembled as he took the drive. He couldn't look at her. He couldn't even look at his own reflection in the puddle beside him. Because if this was true, if he wasn't alone, then the question wasn't who he was. It was, which version was he? In a warehouse 5 miles east, the power flickered violently. Monitors buzzed. Server fans roared. Red lights strobed against metal walls. Inside, a figure stood motionless. He looked just like Daniel. Same height, same jawline, same haunted eyes, but colder, sharper. His hand opened slowly, revealing a small piece of chalk. He turned toward a shattered mirror and scribbled 4 letters across it. E0X3. Then he spoke without turning. "He's awake, isn't he?" A woman stepped out of the shadows. Silver hair, combat boots, clipboard in hand. "R1 has broken protocol," she said. He found her. The copy turned and smiled, not with joy, but with hunger. "Then it's time," he whispered. "Let me remind him what he really is." Back in the tunnel, Martha stared at Daniel like she was memorizing him. "You weren't supposed to survive," she said. "I saw them burn your memories. Replace everything with data, weaponry, reaction triggers." She touched his arm gently. "But one thing survived." Daniel swallowed. What? Martha's eyes softened. Your love for me. It didn't matter how many false files they injected into your brain, how many missions they programmed. Every time they sent you out, you came back with a question. She gripped her chest. Who is she? You kept asking. Over and over. A face in your dreams. Daniel's vision blurred. He could see it now. Flashes. Small hands tying his shoelaces. A woman's laughter echoing in a kitchen. The smell of jasmine. You remembered me, she whispered. Even when your mind forgot. Your heart didn't. Clara watched the tracker blink through the mainframe feed. She leaned back in the chair, exhausted. Adam paced behind her, tossing energy drink cans aside. We're losing signal integrity. Someone's jamming the perimeter. Either they're getting close or someone else is. Clara narrowed her eyes. This whole thing feels off. Too smooth. Too quiet. Adam frowned. You think it's D0X3? She didn't answer. Just reached for the emergency comm switch. Daniel, if you're hearing this, be careful. There's movement across the city. Patterns matching your neural frequency. This may not be just about you anymore. Daniel sat up. The air felt heavier, like the tunnel itself was listening. Martha suddenly clutched her chest, wincing. Daniel rushed to her. You okay? She nodded barely. It's my heart. They damaged it when they took me. I don't have long, Danny. He tried to smile. Don't say that. She touched his cheek. You were a miracle, you know that? Daniel nodded slowly. But something in the shadows made him turn. He stood, eyes narrowing. The step. Low. Precise. Heavy. From the darkness. Voice. Identical to his. I always wondered what it felt like. To meet the broken version of me. Daniel stepped forward. He knew that voice. 'Cause it was his. But with no soul behind it. You're the copy, he whispered. D0X3 stepped out of the dark. Same face. Same posture. Different presence. I'm the perfected one, he said coolly. You were the experiment. The fluke. Daniel's fists clenched. Then why are you here? D0X3 smirked. Because I want it. He pointed at Martha. Her. Key. The file she carries. The part of you that kept breaking protocol. That made them afraid. Daniel stepped between them. You're not touching her. The copy tilted his head. Funny. That's exactly what the last version said before I deleted him. Daniel charged. They collided like thunder. Metal on bone. Flesh on code. Fists flew. Blood splattered. The tunnel shook with the weight of their war. Each punch echoed through 2 decades of silence. Each blow screamed with memories erased and rewritten. Martha tried to crawl back. But her strength was fading. Daniel hit the ground hard. D0X3 straddled him. A blade slid from his wrist. Blick. Precise. Meant to erase. Crack. A pipe smashed across D0X3's head. Martha stood there. Barely. But standing. Get off my son, she growled. The copy stumbled. Long enough for Daniel to kick him back. He ran. Breathless. Martha leaned on him with every step. Behind them, D0X3's laughter echoed. You can run. But you can't outcode your destiny, Daniel. But Daniel didn't stop. He knew now. This wasn't about programming. Or genetics. Or systems. It was about choice. And he chose her. He chose to remember. They burst through a tunnel exit into the early morning haze. Clara and Adam's van screeched to a stop. Clara jumped out, grabbing Martha gently. Adam pulled Daniel into the back. Where's the drive? He asked breathlessly. Daniel handed it to him. Is this what you wanted? Adam stared at it like it was radioactive. This isn't just code, he muttered. This is the blueprint. Daniel's head tilted. For what? Clara answered, stunned. For how they made you. All of you. Miles away, in a chamber beneath the old lab, monitors buzzed with new heat signatures. A scientist in a white coat stared at the readings. 2 Daniels on 1 map. "Sir," she whispered into a comm, "we have a convergence." A cold voice replied. "Then it begins." The screen glitched, then displayed 3 words. Phase 2. Initiate. Part 5. Scene opens in a dimly lit van speeding through empty streets. Rain tapped against the windshield like a ticking clock. Daniel sat in the back, staring at the USB drive clutched in Adam's hand. Martha was sleeping, if you could call it that. Her head rested on Clara's shoulder, her breath shallow. Daniel hadn't stopped shaking since the tunnel. Not from fear, but from the truth. He wasn't the only one. He was never supposed to survive. And now, he was being hunted by a better version of himself. "Where are we going?" Daniel finally asked. Clara didn't take her eyes off the road. "There's one person left who can decrypt what's on that drive," she said. "And she's the one who helped build you." Daniel's pulse surged. "You mean Dr. Evelyn Sharp?" The name felt like thunder in his chest. Evelyn Sharp. The woman his mother had once called the surgeon of souls. The same woman who disappeared 20 years ago after a lab fire supposedly killed Subject 0. Elsewhere, D0X3 moved through a corridor slick with condensation. He was limping slightly. Martha's pipe had left a dent in his skull plate. But he didn't care. He was smiling. Because he didn't need to chase Daniel anymore. Daniel would come to him. He always did. Pain. The confusion. The desire for closure. It was all part of the design. And D0X3 knew exactly what waited at the end of that road. Dr. Evelyn Sharp. His real creator. The van screeched to a halt outside a compound buried in the woods outside Fairview. It looked abandoned. Rusting gates, overgrown weeds, cracked windows. But Adam tapped a code on his tablet. And the gates slowly creaked open. Inside, the world changed. Surveillance towers. Heat sensors. Turrets tucked beneath ivy. They weren't the first to arrive. They were expected. "Follow me," Clara said, helping Martha out of the van. Daniel trailed behind, hands still shaking. Every step deeper into the compound felt like walking back into his past. Then they saw her. Dr. Evelyn Sharp stood in the middle of a sterile lab that hummed with quiet power. She was older now, late 50s maybe. But her presence was commanding. Sharp eyes. Teal gray bun. White coat as crisp as if it were just ironed. She turned when they entered. And for a long moment said nothing. "You look just like I remember." Daniel froze. You built me." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I was part of the team. But I didn't create your soul, Daniel. That part came from her." She nodded toward Martha. Martha smiled faintly. Daniel wanted to collapse. So many years lost. So many truths hidden behind lab doors and encrypted files. Evelyn approached. Held his face in her hands. "You were never supposed to survive the purge," she said softly. "But you did. And do you know why?" Daniel shook his head. "Because you loved," she whispered. "You loved your mother more than they could overwrite. You remembered her even after we scrubbed your neural drive." She turned to Clara. "Give me the file." Adam handed over the USB without a word. Evelyn slid it into a secure port and began decrypting. Streams of code filled the screen. Adam leaned closer. "These are blueprints. All the early versions. Every iteration of Daniel. Their capabilities. Their weaknesses." Evelyn didn't blink. "And one other thing." She tapped a line of code. "Failsafe." Daniel leaned in. "What is that?" Evelyn met his eyes. "The one way to stop them all." Back at the lab ruins, D0X3 stood before a sealed vault. He pressed his palm against the scanner. It flashed red. "Access denied." He frowned, but then smiled again. Because he didn't need codes. He had fire. He placed a small black sphere at the base of the vault. Walked back and watched it explode. Flames bloomed. Dust filled the air. Inside the vault something stirred. Another pod. Another presence. Another version. Leaping. Waiting. At the compound, Evelyn pulled up the last sector of the decrypted file. It wasn't code. It was a video. Daniel's breath caught. On screen. A younger Martha. Pregnant. Crying. "I know you'll be confused," she said in the video, speaking to the camera. "I know the world you wake up in won't make sense." He paused. "But you are not a mistake, Daniel. You are not a weapon. You are my son. And no amount of science or synthetic data can erase what's real." Daniel dropped to his knees, tears streaming. Martha, sitting nearby, reached for his hand. "You were always mine," she whispered. "And I'll always be yours." The silence was shattered by a security alarm. Red lights pulsed. Clara checked the monitor and went pale. "They've breached the second perimeter." Evelyn swore under her breath. "How did they find us so fast?" Adam glanced at Daniel. "Because they're not tracking us. They're tracking him." Outside the gates, D0X3 stood in the clearing. Behind him, smoke billowed from a vehicle. He walked slowly, confidently. Not rushing. He knew the layout. The blind spots. Every entry route. He was, after all, built from the same specs. Clara armed the turrets. Adam launched the drone override. Evelyn hit the lockdown protocol. But nothing stopped him. Not yet. Inside the lab, Daniel turned to Evelyn. "If there's a way to stop him, tell me." Evelyn hesitated. "It'll kill you too." Daniel didn't flinch. "I'm already dying inside." Evelyn opened a panel and handed him a small black chip. "Insert this into your core node. It will send a surge through the synthetic neural web. It'll disable every version within a 50-mile radius, including you." Daniel took it, held it tight. "Thank you," then turned to his mother and knelt in front of her. "I'm sorry for every year I stayed away. I didn't know who I was. I was scared I'd hurt you." She smiled through tears. "You never did." He kissed her forehead, then stood and walked into the hallway. Outside, D0X3 stepped over bodies now. Guards, sensors. His mind was a storm, but his target was clear. He stopped outside the main lab. Daniel stood at the end of the hallway. Their eyes met. Same eyes, but only one of them still had a soul. D0X3 smiled. "Shall we finish this?" Daniel slid the chip into his palm. "Let's." Scene opens in a cold hallway lined with steel. Daniel and D0X3 stood at opposite ends. Same face, same frame, same origin, but two different hearts. One born in grief, the other born in control. D0X3 tilted his head, mechanical smile twitching. "You think you're different," he said, stepping forward. "You think love makes you real." Daniel didn't move. "No. I know pain made me real." Behind him, red security lights pulsed like a dying heartbeat. Clara and Evelyn watched from the shadows of the control room, breath held. Martha, barely conscious now, whispered Daniel's name under her breath. The chip Evelyn gave him pressed hard in his palm. He could end it. End all of it. But he'd vanish too. Was he ready? D0X3 moved first, faster than sound. His fist shattered the wall where Daniel stood a second ago. Daniel rolled, countering with a blow to the ribs. Metal cracked, sparks flew. But D0X3 didn't flinch. "You've learned emotion," he hissed. "But not control." His palm lit up with a charge. Electricity surged. He slammed Daniel into the ground. 3 times. The floor cracked. Clara grabbed a rifle and started toward the fight. Evelyn grabbed her arm. "He has to do it himself." Adam cursed. "If he doesn't activate that chip in the next 2 minutes, this whole facility's gone." Daniel coughed up blood, real, not code. His bones weren't fully synthetic. He was made different. Because Martha begged for it. "I wanted you to feel the world," she had once told Evelyn. "To feel joy and heartbreak. And now, heartbreak was the only thing keeping him upright. "You're broken," D0X3 growled, pulling him up by the throat. "You bleed like them. You hesitate like them." Daniel's hands trembled. But not from fear. From grief. From resolve. "You know what makes me different." Daniel gasped. D0X3 narrowed his eyes. Daniel opened his fist, revealing the chip. "I choose to end this." Evelyn's control room beeped with a timer. Clara watched as Daniel raised the chip toward his chest. "No, no, Daniel, not yet," she whispered. But the camera feed flickered. D0X3 had seen it. He lunged, knocking the chip from Daniel's hand. It skittered across the floor. Silence. Both of them stared at it. Then charged. The fight turned savage. Fist, feet. Memory against memory. Each move mirrored. Each strike predicted. Like watching a man fight his shadow. But Daniel was slowing. Too human. Too bruised. Too tired. D0X3 punched him through a door. Glass shattered. Daniel slammed into an operating table. He looked up. Blood in his eyes. And he saw something. Mirror. Crack. In it his face. And beside it, his mother's. Flashback. A letter. Her handwriting. "If they ever turn you against yourself, remember what you were born with. Not wires. Not metal. But hope." Daniel reached behind the table. Pulled out the chip. And this time, he ran toward D0X3. D0X3 didn't expect that. They collided mid-air. Daniel wrapped his arms around him and slammed the chip into his own spine. The light burst through his chest. Blinding. The hallway glowed like a supernova. Darkness. The next moment was silence. Alarms stopped. Surveillance screens went blank. Clara rushed out with Evelyn and Adam behind. The hallway was smoke. They stepped over twisted metal. Bodies. Sparks. Then they saw Daniel. Collapse. D0X3 beside him, completely offline. His blank. Mouth frozen mid-snarl. But Daniel. He was breathing. Barely. They carried him into the lab. Evelyn worked fast wires stimulators for drips. "He shouldn't be alive," she whispered. "That surge should have fried his neural cortex." But Daniel's heart kept ticking. Martha, waking slowly, was wheeled in beside him. She took his hand in hers and smiled. "You didn't just survive," she whispered. "You saved them." Hours passed. The storm outside began to fade. Evelyn sat beside a monitor. Clara beside her. Adam leaned against the wall, eyes heavy. Then Daniel stirred. Weakly. "Did it work?" he whispered. Clara nodded, eyes wet. "They're gone. Every version within the radius, fried." He exhaled. Then looked to his right. His mom. Still there. "Hi, Mom," he whispered. She smiled. "You came back to me." But just as relief filled the room, Adam's tablet buzzed. He frowned, checked it, then turned pale. "There's another facility," he said. Everyone looked up. A backup. Deep in the Nevada sector. Clara rushed to the terminal. Pulled the data. Her face dropped. "They weren't just building you. They were building an army." Evelyn stood. "No. Not again." Daniel sat up slowly. His voice was hoarse. "Then we stop them before they wake." Martha held his hand. Tears on her cheeks. "But you just got home." Daniel turned to her. "I am home. But if I don't go, none of this survives." He kissed her forehead. "I promise I'll come back this time." She squeezed his hand. "I'll be waiting." Closing scene. Daniel walking out of the compound, wind blowing, sun rising behind him. For the first time in years, he knew who he was. Not a project, not a weapon, not even just a son, but a man with a mission. And this time, he wasn't afraid of what he'd find. Fade in, black screen, soft ambient wind. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the Nevada horizon glowed with an eerie stillness. Desert stretched endlessly. Dry, cracked, untouched. Except for one thing. A road. A narrow, black path cutting through nothingness. On that road was a black SUV. Inside sat Daniel. Eyes forward. Wounds still fresh. Mind sharper than ever. Clara sat beside him, typing into a portable scanner. In the back seat, Adam scrolled through satellite images on a tablet, lips pressed thin. The mission was clear. Infiltrate the second facility. Destroy any remaining builds. Leave no trace. But there was one problem. No one knew what they'd find. Not even Evelyn, who stayed behind to guard Martha and rebuild the firewall. Daniel gripped the wheel tighter. Every mile they moved deeper into the silence, the less human the world began to feel. 2 hours later, the scanner beeped. Clara sat upright. We're close. Signals pulsing beneath the surface, about 300 feet underground. Adam glanced up. No visuals. But there's a massive power signature spiking every 10 minutes. Daniel narrowed his eyes at the empty desert ahead. They saw it. Not a building, not a tower, but a dent in the earth. Crater. Perfectly symmetrical. In its center, a rusted hatch, barely visible beneath sand. Adam stepped out first, gun drawn. Clara followed, activating a frequency jammer. Daniel knelt at the hatch, wiped off the dust. Keypad. Worn. Faintly humming. He entered Evelyn's override code. Click. Then silence. A low, deep hum. And the hatch began to open. Cut to elevator shaft, descending with metallic groans. As the elevator dropped, the air grew colder. The walls shifted from metal to something else. Smooth, dark glass lined with fiber optics pulsing faint blue. Adam adjusted his rifle. Clara looked visibly tense. Daniel stared at the floor, his reflection flickering beneath his feet. He wasn't sure if the image looking back at him was still fully human. The elevator stopped. Sublevel 9. The doors creaked open. And what they saw froze them. A massive underground hangar. Hundreds of identical humanoid figures, lined up in perfect rows. Eyes closed. Tubes connected to their backs. Wires feeding them streams of data. Each one looked like him. Each one wore the same expression. Cold. Blank. Waiting. Clara stepped forward. God! They weren't building replacements. Daniel finished her sentence. They were building an army. Adam's hands trembled. Every single one of them is synced to a central command node. If that node wakes, Clara scanned the network. They'll activate instantly. Daniel's voice was quiet. Then we shut it down. Now. They moved fast. Clara located the control core, far side of the chamber behind a biometric lock. Adam planted explosives at structural beams. They had 15 minutes to wipe the place before backup routines triggered. Daniel stayed still for a second, gazing at the clones. Some were younger versions of himself, others older. All had slight genetic tweaks. Some had wider shoulders. Others had different eye colors. But they were all him. Or at least what someone wanted him to be. A whisper echoed through the hall. Mechanical. Female. Unit recognition prime. Identity confirmed. The voice came from a speaker above. Daniel turned. A red light tracked his movement. Welcome home, Daniel. He froze. A voice was his mother's. But not real. Deepfake. A replica generated by machine. Would you like to initiate memory synchronization? Daniel stepped back, shaken. Clara pulled a wire. Shut it down, Daniel. It's just code. But then the clones began to twitch. Fingers moved. Heads tilted. Eyes fluttered open. All glowing the same shade of amber. Adam yelled. It's waking them. Daniel's pulse spiked. No, it's syncing with my neural data. That's how it's recognizing me. He sprinted toward the control core. The chamber roared to life. Hydraulics hissed. Sparks flew. The first clone stepped off its platform. Then another. Then 10. Clara shouted. Too late. We need to blow the charges now. Daniel reached the biometric panel, slammed his palm against it. Access denied. He tried again, and again. Still denied. A whisper behind him. Daniel! He turned. One of the clones stood just feet away. But its eyes weren't amber. They were blue. Exactly like his. The clone tilted its head. You were the first, it said softly. I was the last. Daniel's heart pounded. What are you? I'm what they made, after learning from you. It stepped forward slowly, hands raised. I know things you don't. Because I was designed to finish what you wouldn't. Daniel backed up. But the clone didn't attack. I'm not here to stop you, it said. I'm here to help. Clara called from across the room. Daniel. 10 seconds. The clone turned toward the control node. If you destroy this place, good. It looked at the others, still waking. But take me with you. Daniel hesitated. Nodded. He grabbed the clone's hand and sprinted back to Clara and Adam. Adam pulled the detonator. 3, 2. The explosion tore through the facility. Steel cracked. Fire erupted. Clones were engulfed in flame as beams collapsed over them. The elevator shot upward. Smoke chased behind. When they reached the surface, they fell to their knees, choking, puffing, alive. The desert was silent again. But everything had changed. Back at the safe house, Evelyn looked up as they walked in. Her eyes widened when she saw the second Daniel. He stood beside the original, slightly thinner, more solemn. I know what this means, she whispered. Daniel nodded. So do I. Martha sat upright, blinking through tired eyes. She looked at the new figure. Her lip trembled. He looked at her, quiet, cautious, then knelt, and whispered, Hi, Mom. Her tears flowed like rain, and she pulled him into her arms, not because he was the same, but because he was real, in a world that tried to fake everything. Part 6. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet. No alarms, no screams, no scanners flashing red. Just the sound of an old kettle hissing softly in the kitchen. Daniel stood at the window, watching the sun filter through dusty curtains. The sky looked normal, the world almost peaceful, but inside him, his memory fragments, visions that didn't belong to him, or maybe belonged to both of them. He turned toward the table where the other Daniel, his genetic echo, sat hunched over a laptop, decrypting the final server block from the underground facility. Clara leaned beside him, hands on the back of a chair, her eyes flicking between screens. Adam was outside, patrolling the perimeter. He hadn't spoken much since the escape. And Evelyn? She was in the basement, wiring up an EMP charge. Just in case. Daniel exhaled, rubbing his temples. You said there was something buried in the mainframe, he asked, his voice dry. The clone, whom Clara had started calling Echo, nodded. There's a memory cluster. But it's encrypted in a language that shouldn't exist. Clara frowned. What do you mean? Echo glanced up, his face calm. It's not just code. It's DNA-laced linguistics. Whoever built this didn't want machines to understand it. Daniel stepped forward. So who did they want to read it? Echo turned the laptop toward him. The screen showed scrolling text, symbols, broken words, corrupted sequences. But embedded in the mess was a voice print and a name. Clara gasped. Evelyn, now back upstairs, nearly dropped her toolkit. Adam peeked in from the door. They all saw it. Subject: Martha Elaine Cross. Log timestamp: T-28 days. Voice data recovered: 92%. Status: suppressed. Access: requires blood signature. Daniel's blood ran cold. His mother had left something. Not a journal, not a video, but a voice, hidden in machine code. Ko looked up. If you want to hear what she said, we need to plug you in. Cut to underground lab, safe house basement. The room was cold and dimly lit. Cables coiled like snakes across the floor. In the center, an old neural link station, powered by Clara's backup generators. Daniel sat in the chair, breathing slow. Echo placed a small injector against his neck. "This will sync your biometric pulse with the encryption," he said. "If it works, her memory stream will appear in your mind, not on any screen." Daniel nodded. "I'm ready." Evelyn flicked the final switch. Clara counted down. 3, 2, link established. Cut to Daniel's mind, black void. The darkness cracked open like glass. Images flooded in. Old birthday cards. The smell of cinnamon in December. The sound of her lullaby. And then, room. Familiar, but not real. Daniel stood in a version of his childhood home. Except everything was grayscale. Frozen, like a paused film. And in the center, his mother. Not young, not sick, but full of life. She looked up and smiled. "I was hoping it'd be you," she said softly. Daniel tried to step forward, but his feet wouldn't move. I don't understand." She turned, her eyes glistening. "You were never supposed to come back to this. That's why I left the letter where I did. I knew if you found it, it would mean you were in danger again." He shook his head. "Why didn't you tell me?" She lowered her gaze. "Because they were watching. From the moment you were born." Daniel blinked. "Who?" She exhaled. "The initiative. They started the cloning project before you were even conceived. You were the test, phase 1. But I made sure you were born naturally. Hacked the chain. You were the only one they couldn't fully control." He staggered back. "You hacked a human pregnancy." Her smile was sad. "I had help. Someone from the inside. But I paid a price." Daniel's eyes welled up. "You left us." She stepped closer. "I had to. If I stayed, they would have taken me and you." She reached toward him, her hand ghost-like, shimmering. "But now that you found Echo, it means they're close to finishing phase 3. Daniel swallowed hard. "What's phase 3? She looked toward the gray window, her voice trembling. "It's not just about replacing people anymore. It's about rewriting humanity, turning us into programmable code. They want to upload minds, discard bodies, make the world more efficient." Daniel's heart pounded. "And you knew. I helped design the failsafe. And you are the final key." His breath hitched. "What do I do?" She placed her shimmering hand over his chest. "Remember who you are. Not what they made. Not what they copied. You." The world began to fade. "Tell Evelyn the cipher is inside your genetic scars. The ones they never catalogued." The room cracked. Light burst through. And she whispered one last thing. "I never stopped loving you." Cut back to safe house basement, real world. Daniel gasped, jerking upright. Wires fell from his chest. Clara caught his shoulders. Echo steadied the chair. Evelyn leaned in. "What did you see?" Daniel's eyes filled. "She knew everything. She tried to protect me before I was even born." He looked at Evelyn. "The cipher is in my scars. The ones they didn't tag in their system." Clara blinked. "Scars?" Daniel rolled up his sleeve, revealing an old, faded mark near his bicep. "Childhood burn." Ko scanned it, and his eyes widened. "There's a full genetic cipher encoded in the burn tissue. It's a kill switch." Evelyn's jaw dropped. "She gave you the key to shut the initiative down." Daniel looked up, trembling. "Then we finish this." Cut to nightfall, rooftop of safe house. Daniel stood alone under the stars. The air was colder. Harper. Behind him, the team worked fast, preparing for one final move. The real server. The real launch. It was going to be the most dangerous thing they'd ever attempted. But Daniel wasn't scared. Because now, for the first time, he knew the truth. He hadn't been abandoned. He had been shielded, loved. And now, he was ready to fight for that love. The safe house was no longer a hiding place. It had become a war room. Wires snaked across tables. Screens flickered with blueprints and tactical overlays. Maps were spread across the floor. Coffee cups piled up beside dismantled weapons. But no one was sleeping. Because this was it. The final mission. Daniel stood over a glowing screen with Evelyn and Clara. Echo, the clone, typed rapidly at another terminal. Adam, quiet but alert, leaned in the doorway with a rifle slung across his shoulder. The initiative's mainframe, Project Harrow, was located beneath an abandoned aerospace complex outside Portland. It wasn't just guarded. It was alive. Autonomous drones, DNA-triggered locks, neural barriers that could melt memory if tripped. But Daniel now held something they didn't expect. A cipher. Buried in the scar tissue on his arm. Encoded by his mother. The last firewall key. He flexed his arm gently. Still burned. Like it knew what was coming. Evelyn pointed at the screen. We'll need 2 teams. Clara and I will enter through the western grid. Adam and Echo take the high ridge for drone suppression. She turned to Daniel. You go straight through the front. The cipher won't unlock remotely. You'll have to touch the core. Daniel blinked. You want me to walk into the lion's mouth? Evelyn stared at him. I want you to end what your mother started. He nodded slowly, then turned to Echo. You good with this? The clone didn't answer immediately. His eyes lingered on the screen, then on Daniel's arm. Finally he nodded. I'll cover you. But something in his voice felt off. Cut to nightfall. Edge of the initiative facility. Rain pounded the earth like bullets. Thunder cracked in the distance. The team crouched beside a burned-out vehicle, scanning the facility perimeter. Faint lights pulsed under the ground, heat sensors. Clara whispered into the comms. Evelyn and I are moving. Grid breach in 3 minutes. Adam nodded. Echo and I are on ridge duty. Daniel adjusted his coat, then looked at Echo. See you inside. The clone gave him a thin smile, but didn't return the words. Daniel didn't notice. He was already running toward the compound wall. Cut to inside the facility, core corridor. The hall was unnervingly clean. Metal walls hummed softly. There were no guards, no cameras, just silence. Daniel crept forward, breathing steadily. The scar on his arm pulsed faintly. The closer he got, the warmer it burned. Door hissed open. Beyond it, a massive white chamber. Floating in the center, core. A silver orb the size of a car, suspended by magnetic rings. 1,000 cables fed into it from all sides. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Daniel stepped forward, but stopped, because standing in front of the orb was Echo. Daniel froze. What are you doing here? You were supposed to. Echo turned slowly, and Daniel saw it in his eyes. Something had changed. Not fear, not hesitation, but resolve. Echo's voice was calm. I wasn't sent to protect the key, Daniel. I was designed to replace it. Daniel's blood ran cold. Echo lifted his hand, and the room locked down. Magnetic doors sealing behind him. Security beams humming. Daniel took a step back. You knew all along. Echo nodded. I remember everything. Because she gave me those memories too. He pointed at the orb. She wanted to keep the key alive. But the initiative, they needed control. And they built me as the backup plan. Daniel clenched his fists. You're not her son. Echo's eyes narrowed. And yet, I remember her better than you do. Daniel lunged. But Echo was faster. A brutal kick knocked him across the chamber. Daniel slammed into a pillar, dazed. Echo stepped forward, calm, precise. You think this is about family? About love? He lifted his hand toward the orb. This is about evolution. The core pulsed violently. Its rings spun faster. Lights dimmed. Daniel staggered up, coughing. You'll kill millions. Echo didn't flinch. They're not dying. They're becoming pure data. Consciousness without corruption. minds that never age. No lies. No regret. He turned, placing his hand on the orb. Daniel screamed. No! He ran forward, just as Echo began to merge. A shockwave threw Daniel back. The room turned white. The orb screamed, like 1,000 voices trapped inside glass. And then, silence. Daniel crawled forward. The orb was flickering now. Damage. Crack. Inside the glow, Echo's form flickered, unstable, torn between human and machine. He gasped. I see her. Daniel pulled himself closer. Echo's voice cracked. She didn't choose me. Tears welled up in his eyes. She knew. I wouldn't feel it. Daniel reached for his arm. Blood dripped from his scar. He pressed it to the side of the orb. Chime echoed. The core accepted the key. Suddenly, the orb dimmed. Its rings slowed. Echo collapsed, barely conscious. The shutdown had begun. Cut to external view. Facility trembles. Evelyn and Clara sprinted through collapsing halls. Adam yelled through the comms. Get out! The core is collapsing. Daniel pulled Echo's barely breathing body onto his shoulder. You're coming with me, brother. The walls cracked. Flames licked from ruptured conduits. The orb shattered behind them. Daniel ran. Smoke filled the corridor. The ceiling buckled. One more step. Cut to forest outside the facility. Dawn breaking. The team stood near a dirt road, staring back at the massive sinkhole where the compound once stood. No alarms. No drones. Just birds chirping again. Daniel placed Echo on the ground. The clone's chest rose slowly. Clara whispered, Is he? Daniel nodded. He's alive. But the link is broken. Evelyn exhaled. So it's over. Daniel looked at the morning sky. For now. Because deep in the ash, buried under ruin, a light still blinked. Somewhere far away, another backup was waking up. 2 weeks had passed since the initiative fell. 2 weeks since the facility burned, since the orb shattered, since Echo nearly rewrote the world with Daniel's scar. The world hadn't ended, but something had changed. Daniel could feel it. He wasn't the same man who had avoided his mother for years. He wasn't the same man who once tossed unopened letters in a drawer, because he had lived through the meaning of every one of them now. The cabin sat quietly on the edge of a lake in northern Idaho. Safe house again. But this time not a bunker of fear. More like a healing place. Evelyn chopped wood out front. Clara read quietly by the dock. Adam had left. Said something about visiting his sister in Montana. And Echo, still in recovery. He hadn't spoken a word since they pulled him from the wreckage. His body was healing. But his mind remained a fog of fragments. Daniel checked on him twice a day. Every time he looked into those eyes, he saw something almost childlike. Not innocent, but empty. Like someone erased everything and left behind a hollow shell. Today, Daniel stood on the porch with coffee in hand, staring out at the water. Evelyn stepped up beside him. You sleep. He shook his head. I don't even know what that means anymore. She studied him. You blame yourself. He sipped his coffee. Didn't answer. But the silence was enough. Midday brought a breeze. And a visitor. A delivery van crunched its way down the dirt road. The driver, a teenager with earbuds in, barely looked up as he handed Daniel a package. No return address. No postmark. Just his name typed on a label. Daniel stared at it as the van disappeared. Evelyn stepped closer. What is it? He shook his head. Slowly peeled the tape. Inside. Photo. Daniel's face went pale. The color drained from Evelyn's too. Clara looked up from the dock and ran toward them. 'Cause they were all seeing it. A photograph of Daniel. Standing at the cabin porch. Wearing the exact same hoodie. Same mug in his hand. Same storm cloud expression. But the timestamp in the bottom right corner read, yesterday. 3:46 p.m. Daniel looked up at the trees. His blood chilled. We were all here. No one took this. Evelyn took the photo and flipped it over. There was a note, handwritten. No signature. Just a message. She knew what would happen. And she planned for after. The second scar isn't on you, Daniel. It's on someone else. Daniel blinked. What does that mean? Clara stared at Echo, still lying in the cabin. You don't think. Daniel was already walking inside. Echo sat up in bed, eyes blank. Daniel pulled up the sleeve of Echo's left arm. Nothing. Then the right. And there it was. A faint line, scarred but older than Daniel's. Faded like it had healed long ago. But shaped the same. Almost identical. Daniel touched it. Echo didn't move. Didn't react. Clara stepped forward, whispering. Was this why he was unstable? 2 overlapping programs. Evelyn nodded slowly. The initiative must have encoded both of you. Redundant systems. Daniel's voice was low. But Mom didn't tell me. Evelyn looked him in the eyes. Because she didn't want you to know there was a backup to your soul. Daniel sat down beside Echo. His hands trembled. He thought it was over. He thought burning the core was the end. But this was something else. If Echo still had a scar, if it was never activated, was it dormant? Or waiting? That night, the nightmares returned. Daniel saw flashes. His mother's voice. The hospital. That final letter. The one she hid behind the frame. In the dream she said something new. The real enemy isn't the initiative. It's what they left behind. In you. Daniel woke up gasping. Clara rushed in, concerned. But he waved her off. He stood at the mirror and looked at himself. His eyes weren't his mother's. His father's maybe. But deeper than that. He wondered how much of him had ever truly belonged to him. Morning brought answers. And more questions. Because Echo was gone. The bed was empty. The window open. Tracks in the mud outside. Evelyn shouted for him. Clara checked the treeline. Nothing. Daniel stood frozen, holding something Echo left behind. A note, scrawled in jagged handwriting. I remember her again. But the voices came back. I need to find out if I'm real. If you follow me, I'll forget again. Don't. By sunset, the team sat at the dinner table in silence. No one ate much. Finally, Clara broke it. So what now? Evelyn sighed. We rest. We regroup. And we figure out where he's going. Daniel stared at the fire crackling in the hearth. No. They turned to him. His voice was firm. We don't wait. He lifted a second envelope, found under Echo's mattress. Inside was a ticket stub. Train to Kansas City. Departure. 2 days ago. Daniel looked at them. He wants answers. So do I. He stood up. I'm going after him. Evelyn didn't try to stop him this time. She just said, then we go together. Across the country, in a dim motel room, Echo stared at a mirror. Sweat rolled down his neck. His hand trembled over a small device. Portable scanner. He pressed it to his neck. Beep. A voice from the device, static-filled, spoke. Welcome, sleeper. Layer 2 unlocked. Initiating core restoration. Echo's pupils dilated. He dropped the scanner and gasped, as an unfamiliar voice whispered inside his head. You were never meant to wake up. But now, it's your turn. Part 7. Kansas City buzzed with summer heat. Children played near sprinklers. Vendors sold lemonade on corners. Couples strolled sidewalks, unaware that something ancient and hidden was about to stir beneath their feet. Daniel stepped off the bus, the air thick with diesel and memory. Evelyn followed, scanning the station with cautious eyes. Clara trailed behind, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder, worry etched into her brow. No one said a word, because they all felt it. Something wasn't right. They booked a motel just off Troost Avenue. Faded carpet, buzzing light, but clean enough. Daniel opened his laptop, dropped onto the bed, and pulled up train records. Echo had arrived 3 days ago. No tickets booked since. No credit card use. No phone signal. He's gone off-grid, Clara said, peeking over his shoulder. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we grid the city ourselves. They spent the next 6 hours walking block after block. Evelyn checked libraries. Clara scanned shelters. Daniel took the east side. Factories, warehouses, abandoned apartment buildings. Nothing. Not a trace. Ugh. Clara found something strange. She flagged them from a street corner, pointing to a bus stop billboard. Spray painted in deep red, barely visible under layers of other graffiti. I remember the second room. Daniel froze. Evelyn whispered. What does that mean? He turned slowly, voice low. It was from the dream. Clara blinked. What dream? Daniel didn't answer, because a wave of memory surged over him. In the letter his mother never mailed, she'd written. They didn't just build one program. They built two. One to store memory. The other to store possibility. He'd read it and ignored the implications. But now it hit him like a freight train. Echo wasn't just a mirror. He was the alternate path. Second file. The what-if version of Daniel his mother feared would one day awaken. The second room. The place where Echo's memories weren't his own. They returned to the motel in silence. Until Evelyn's burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. Blocked location. She answered cautiously. Hello. A distorted voice came through, robotic and clipped. He's not who you think. You're already too late. But she left you one more piece. Blick. Deadline. Daniel looked at Evelyn. Who was it? She played the recording again. Clara stepped away, pale. That voice, was it his? Daniel shook his head. No, that wasn't Echo. But somehow it felt familiar. Later that night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat in the motel hallway, headphones on, listening to an old voicemail from her sister. Something to ground her. Until she noticed something strange. In the silence between words. Small glitch-like click. She rewound. Played again. Blick. Click click. Then she heard it clearly. Morse code. Her heart pounded. She rushed back into the room, laptop in hand. Daniel and Evelyn sat up instantly. Clara connected her phone, cleaned the audio, and ran it through a decoder. The message came slowly. The file is under the clock. They turned in unison toward the room's wall clock. Cheap plastic thing. No obvious panel. Daniel pulled it down. The backing popped loose. Inside, a tiny micro SD card, taped to the interior. Evelyn stared in disbelief. Why here? How did? Daniel whispered. It wasn't him who left it. He plugged it into his laptop. One file appeared. Cassidy'sLastMemory.inc. Password protected. They tried every variation. Phrases from the letters. Nothing worked. Until Clara typed a phrase Daniel remembered from one of his mother's letters. Even when you don't believe me, I'll still believe in you. Blick. Access granted. The video loaded slowly. Grainy. Flickering. Cassidy Holt appeared on screen. Her face thinner, eyes tired but determined. If you're watching this, then the scar didn't erase everything. She glanced down, her hands fidgeting. I didn't want it this way. I didn't want you to inherit my war. But if Echo is activated, then someone in the initiative survived. And they've started rebooting the sequence. Daniel leaned forward. Clara held her breath. Cassidy continued. There's a third scar. Buried deeper. Designed for one thing. To rewrite memory as history. That means whoever controls it doesn't just change a person's mind. They change what the world remembers about them. She swallowed hard. Find Echo before they use him. 'Cause if they do, you won't even remember you're supposed to stop him. The video cut to black. Daniel sat frozen. Then whispered. Where the hell is the third scar? The next morning, Evelyn found something in local records. closed-down psych facility outside Kansas City. Abandoned for 20 years. Fenced off. No electricity. No listed owner. But on an aerial map, she saw movement. Vehicles that shouldn't be there. Heat signatures that didn't belong in an empty building. Daniel stared at the name on the gate. Westridge Asylum. His stomach dropped. Because Cassidy had once worked there. Back when she was part of the Department of Neural Behavior. And now it all made sense. Echo hadn't vanished. He'd gone home. They drove out at sunset. No lights, no sound. The place looked like a mausoleum. Daniel cut the engine. They approached the back entrance on foot. Crows scattered from the trees. The main doors hung crooked, rusted hinges screeching. Inside, everything smelled of mildew and lost time. Peeling paint, broken beds, empty wheelchairs tucked in corners like forgotten ghosts. Clara whispered, "Are you sure he's here?" Daniel nodded. His scar would draw him here. This place has the original signal. The first broadcast. Where everything started. They moved deeper into the corridor. The silence grew louder. Until they reached the security hub. Evelyn tapped a monitor. Static. But one camera flickered. Basement level 3. They all froze. Because the camera showed a single man sitting in a chair. Staring directly into the lens. Go. His eyes were calm. To come. And behind him, barely visible, was another shadow. Someone else. Standing motionless. A figure in white. Face obscured. And then the feed cut out. Daniel whispered. He's not alone. The metal door to the basement was rusted shut. Daniel pressed his shoulder against it. Grunted. Nothing. Evelyn stepped up with a pry bar, wedging it into the hinge. Clara held the flashlight steady. With a loud metallic snap, the door gave way. A gust of air whooshed up from the darkness. Cold. Metallic. Familiar. They descended slowly, one creaking step at a time. Each footfall echoed as if the walls themselves were listening. The staircase narrowed. The lights above dimmed behind them, swallowed by darkness. At the bottom, a long corridor lined with cell doors. Some ajar, some sealed tight. All marked with numbers. Daniel passed by room 7. A child's nameplate scratched off violently. His breath caught. He remembered something from the tapes. Room 7 was where they kept the replicants, the failed mirrors. They kept walking. A soft humming began. Whoa. Electric. Coming from room 12. Inside, an old projector flickered against the far wall. Faint images looped. Faces, dates, flashes of memories. But none of them Daniel recognized. Except one. Cassidy. Standing in a lab coat. Speaking to someone out of frame. He's not just a reflection. He's a reaction. If we overwrite one thread, the other will feel it. He paused. They're connected now. If Daniel begins to remember, so will Echo. The video cut abruptly. Daniel turned to Evelyn. She didn't just create him. She tethered us. Suddenly, a scream echoed from the far end of the hallway. Clara spun around, flashlight trembling. Another scream, this one deeper. Followed by a crash of metal. Daniel took off running. Evelyn and Clara followed. The corridor curved, leading to a locked security door. Behind the glass. Go. Strapped to a chair. Head slumped. Mouth moving silently. Daniel slammed his palm against the glass. Echo! The figure twitched. Looked up. His glassy vacant yet aware. He mouthed something. Over and over. Clara whispered. What's he saying? Daniel focused. Watched his brother's lips move. Not alone. Not alone. Not alone. The lights above them began to flicker. Loud click. Then the door unlatched. By itself. Evelyn raised her weapon. Daniel stepped inside. But as soon as his foot hit the tile, the door slammed shut behind him. He spun. Pounded on the glass. Clara screamed from the other side, but her voice was muffled now. Sealed off. Daniel turned slowly. Ko sat still. then lifted his eyes, a strange calm washing over his features. "It's not me you should fear, Daniel. It's the one she locked beneath us." Daniel blinked. "Who?" Echo nodded toward the floor. "The original. The first scar. The one they couldn't control." Suddenly the lights cut out. Pitch black. An faint thump below. Another. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, climbing up from level 4. The forgotten level. The level even Cassidy never mentioned. Daniel's skin turned cold. Echo whispered, "He remembers you." Daniel backed toward the wall. Echo stood up, the restraints falling away like paper. "How?" Daniel stammered. Echo smiled faintly. "I was never locked in. Just waiting." In the hallway, Evelyn was trying everything. Buttons, wires, circuits. Nothing opened the door. Clara screamed. "He's in there with him." Suddenly a panel lit up. A countdown timer appeared. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Then a robotic voice announced, "Initiating final transfer protocol." Clara looked at Evelyn. "What does that mean?" Evelyn's face drained of color. "They're going to overwrite Daniel's mind." Clara's voice cracked. "With what?" Evelyn whispered. "With whoever's coming up those stairs." Inside the room, Daniel turned to Echo. "You're helping them." Echo shook his head. "I'm choosing survival." Daniel clenched his fists. "This isn't survival. It's erasure." Echo stepped forward inches from Daniel. "They never let me live. Always the shadow. The backup file. The test that never passed." His voice trembled with something darker. Resentment, pain, longing. "But in 1 minute, I'll be you and you'll be dust." Below, footsteps reached the final stair. A metallic hand gripped the railing. Then a figure stepped into the light. Man. But not alive. Not fully. A hybrid of flesh and machine. Face half burned, eye glowing red. The left side of his skull exposed to reveal microcircuitry pulsing with light. Daniel gasped. 'Cause he recognized him. "Dad!" The man didn't speak. But something in his stance. The way he tilted his head. The way his fingers twitched. It was Victor Holt. Cassidy's husband. The man who vanished after Project Recall failed. Echo stepped back. He was the first mirror. The first scar. The one who turned on them. Daniel shook his head. "No, she said he died in the fire." Echo's voice was cold. "She lied." The timer ticked down. 42 seconds. Victor stepped forward, something hanging from his side. A worn dog tag. Cassidy's handwriting still etched faintly on it. "Forgive the ones who forget." Daniel's heart raced. He stepped between Echo and Victor. "What do you want?" Victor raised his hand. A blinding pulse of white light surged out, striking both Daniel and Echo. They screamed in unison. Clara and Evelyn watched through the glass in horror as both brothers convulsed. The screen read, "Transfer in progress." Inside Daniel's mind, he was falling. Through memory. Through time. Back into the house. The kitchen. The last day he saw his mother. Cassidy stood by the stove. She turned to him. But her eyes were Echo's. "No," he whispered. "This isn't real." She stepped closer. "You have to choose, Daniel. One of you must stay behind. The other wakes up." Back in the room, the lights exploded above. The countdown hit. 00:00:03. 00:00:02. 00:00:01. Then silence. Clara screamed. The door burst open finally. Smoke billowed out. They rushed inside. 2 bodies on the ground. Both identical. Both still. One opened his eyes. Evelyn raised her weapon. "Which one are you?" The man blinked. Sat up slowly. His voice soft, confused. "I don't know." The room was thick with silence. Only one of them stirred. 2 identical bodies, Daniel and Echo, lay side by side on the cold lab floor. But only one opened his eyes. His breath was shallow. hands trembling, eyes darting from Evelyn to Clara. Evelyn stepped forward slowly, weapon still raised. "Say your name." The man blinked. I'm Daniel." Clara dropped to her knees beside him, her voice shaking. "What's the last thing your mom ever said to you?" His lips parted. A whisper. "You'll forget me, but I'll remember you." Clara's face broke. Tears streamed down. It was him. But Evelyn didn't lower her weapon. Memories can be implanted. That's what Cassidy's project was all about. "We need proof." Daniel looked at her, hurt, confused, but nodded. "What kind of proof?" Evelyn hesitated. "There's a vault beneath level 4. Cassidy once told me. If anything went wrong, the original letter, your mother's real last words, was kept there. The one not manipulated, not altered. Unfiltered truth." Daniel stood, unsteady on his feet. "I want to read it." They moved together, Daniel, Evelyn, and Clara, through the back corridors of the facility. What once felt like a tomb now felt like a reckoning. The hallway leading to Vault X was hidden behind a wall panel. Evelyn entered the override code, HD1025. The panel slid away, revealing an old biometric lock. Daniel stepped forward. The scanner pulsed. "Access granted." The door groaned open. Dust swirled in the golden light pouring through the crack. Inside, a single item sat on a pedestal. A weathered envelope. On the front, written in Cassidy's delicate cursive, "To my real son." Daniel reached for it with trembling hands. As his fingers touched the paper, a strange warmth spread through him. Not mechanical, not manufactured, but real. He unfolded the letter. His voice cracked as he began to read aloud. "My dearest Daniel, if you're reading this, then the world has shattered into too many reflections. And I've failed to protect you from the truth. You were never a mistake. You were never meant to be tested, replaced, or overwritten. You were the first thing I ever created that made me believe in something beyond science. Soul. Echo was not your enemy. He was your shadow, born when I tried to give the world more of you. But I should have known. Light doesn't come from duplicating brightness. Comes from truth. Your father, Victor, he didn't die in a fire. He gave up his body to stop my work. To protect you from what I was becoming. He became the final gatekeeper, keeping Echo from consuming you completely. He's not a monster. He's the last whisper of our family's conscience. Forgive me for all the years I let you grow up without answers. I didn't want you to live in fear. But I also didn't want you to become the machine I feared I had raised. You are real, Daniel. And you are loved. Even if I'm gone. You were never forgotten." When he finished, Daniel didn't speak. He just stood there, eyes closed, the letter against his chest. For the first time in years, he felt whole. Clara wept openly. Evelyn turned away, brushing her eyes. A soft beep behind them. They turned. The body that had remained still on the floor. "Go." His eyes opened slowly, but they no longer held defiance. They held peace. Daniel rushed back to him. Kneeling, he whispered, "Echo?" The twin smiled faintly. "I saw her too." Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" Echo's voice was faint, distant. "In that in-between place. She said we weren't meant to fight. We were meant to protect each other." Daniel's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I left you alone." Echo shook his head weakly. "No, you brought us back." He reached up, touched Daniel's hand. And then, without pain, without fear, Echo slipped away. Not erased, not deleted, just gone. Like a sigh carried into silence. Back at the surface, the morning sun cut through the clouds. Clara sat on the back porch of Cassidy's old house, watching Daniel stare into the garden. He held the letter in one hand, and Echo's pendant in the other. Clara walked over, quiet. "Do you feel like yourself again?" Daniel smiled softly. "No. I feel like someone better." She nodded. "What happens now?" Daniel stood, looking at the horizon. I go visit the graves. That afternoon, Daniel stood in front of two simple headstones. One read, Cassidy Holt, beloved mother. She built memory from love. The other, Echo, the reflection that chose to love. Daniel placed the letter beneath his mother's name, and the pendant atop Echo's. Then he whispered, I forgive you both. In the days that followed, Daniel began rebuilding. Not the lab, not the technology, but his life. He reached out to people, started journaling, taught young engineers how to dream without erasing their past. He even returned to Clara's little hometown, where he stayed in the guest room of her grandmother's farmhouse for a while, helping mend fences, both literal and emotional. The shadow of Cassidy's work never left completely, but it no longer controlled him. It reminded him of choices, of compassion, of forgiveness. One night, while walking alone near the edge of the property, Daniel saw something glinting in the moonlight. Stone. Etched into it a phrase. You were not the experiment. You were the answer. Daniel smiled, whispered into the wind, I remember now. And for the first time in decades, he went home,